What if Naruto had a reincarnated older brother part 2? Wait. Before we start, thank you for blowing up part 1. Just wanted to thank the people kept pushing me for part 2. But Minato was not one to surrender without a fight. He activated his flying thunder god technique, teleporting himself away from the masked man's grasp. The masked man, momentarily caught off guard, watched as Minato vanished into thin air. He teleported away. He's fast, next time it'll get him faster the instant we make contact, he muttered to himself, a hint of frustration in his voice. Minato's body crashed near his Hiraishin kunai just outside the remnants of the warehouse where he had teleported baby Naruto with the explosive tags. As he picked himself up, his mind raced, trying to comprehend the events that had just transpired. My attack missed, he thought, his brow furrowed in concentration. But he managed to materialize and instantly attempted to drag me into his dimension. What is this jutsu? As he slowly rose to his feet, a sudden sense of foreboding washed over him. Instinctively, he spun around, his eyes widening as he caught sight of a figure emerging from a swirling vortex. "Hey, I won't let you get away," the masked man declared arrogantly, his single Sharingan glinting menacingly through the mask. Minato's mind raced as he observed his opponent's use of the teleportation jutsu. Could this be how he abducted Kushina and escaped so swiftly? He wondered, retrieving the Hiraishin kunai at his feet. As he slowly rose to his full height, Minato's thoughts continued to unravel. A shinobi who managed to outmaneuver the Umbu assigned under the third Hokage's direct command, slipped through a top-secret barrier, and possessed the knowledge that the nine-tailed seal would weaken during childbirth. He mused, his gaze never leaving his masked adversary. Furthermore, he undid the nine-tailed seal, tamed the beast, and infiltrated and exited the hidden leaf's barrier undetected. There's only one shinobi capable of such feats, Minato concluded, his voice hardening as he addressed the masked man. "Are you Madara Uchiha?" he inquired, a hint of suspicion lacing his tone. "No, that's impossible. He's dead." The masked man lowered his hood, with slowly tilting his head at an angle. "I wonder about that myself," he replied enigmatically. Undeterred by the theatrics, Minato pressed on with his question. "Regardless of your identity, why are you targeting the hidden leaf?" The masked man's expression remained inscrutable as he offered a cryptic response. The reasons behind my actions are as varied as the winds that blow. I could tell you it was a fleeting impulse, a meticulously crafted plan, an act of war, or a pursuit of peace." As he spoke, he produced a peculiar chain with cuffs at each end, its purpose shrouded in mystery. Minato, sensing the gravity of the situation, adopted a serious demeanor. Whatever the case, this man is no ordinary shinobi, he thought. He can control the nine tails, his teleportation jutsu surpasses both the second Hokage's and mine, and his ideology is undeniably dangerous. I must deal with him now, or he will pose an even greater threat than the nine tails itself. If I transport myself back to the village now, he will follow and the battlefield will become even more chaotic. If he's anything like Madara, I can't keep the nine tails under the summoning jutsu for too long. I must entrust the village to the third Hokage and face this man here and now. With that determination in mind, Minato gripped his Hiraishin kunai tightly, assuming a battle pose. As Minato pondered his next move, the masked man fastened the cuffs to his wrists. "Now that I have freed the nine tails, you people have no hope left," he declared, his voice echoing with a chilling confidence. In a synchronized burst of speed, Minato and the masked man charged towards each other, their movements blurring into a whirlwind of motion. As Minato closed in on his adversary, he thrust his kunai forward, aiming to skewer the masked man. However, just as he had experienced before, the kunai and Minato himself passed straight through the masked man's form, as if he were made of intangible phantoms. Capitalizing on this momentary disorientation, the masked man seized the opportunity. With a swift tug on the chains attached to his wrists, he ensnared Minato in a tight grip, the chains wrapping around the yellow flash's midsection. Sensing the impending danger, Minato reacted with lightning-fast reflexes, employing his signature flying thunder god technique to teleport out of the chain's grasp. In an instant, he materialized a few meters away, crouching low, his presence a blur against the backdrop of the battlefield. As he regained his composure, Minato's mind raced, analyzing the peculiar nature of his opponent. "His physical form, my physical attacks have no effect on him," he thought, his eyes darting towards the masked man's position. "But he materializes to launch his attacks. That means I can only target him when we both strike simultaneously." However, Minato continued, his thoughts sharp and focused. His vulnerability lies in that brief moment of materialization. And considering the time constraints of the nine-tails summoning jutsu, he clearly isn't interested in prolonging this battle. Victory will hinge on who strikes that split second faster. With a surge of determination, Minato turned and sprinted towards the masked man, who mirrored his movement, both figures converging in a high-speed dance of death. When Minato got near the masked man, he threw the Hiraishin kunai at the masked man's head. The kunai passed right through the masked man's head, just like Minato's last attack. The masked man reached out his right hand to touch Minato. As the kunai passed through the masked man's head, Minato made a Rasengan in his right hand. However, this Rasengan was different from the regular Rasengan. It made a high-pitched sound and was white in color. It was a wind-release Rasengan that Minato had mastered recently. "I win," the masked man thought as he was about to touch Minato first. But just then Minato teleported to the kunai he had thrown. Appearing above the masked man, Minato used his superior speed and reflexes to slam the wind-release Rasengan on the masked man's back. All of this happened so fast that the masked man was not able to react or activate his Kamui. The force of the attack was so great that it destroyed the entire field and formed a big crater. Realizing what had just happened, the masked man cursed, "Damn it, he teleported to that kunai earlier. That was my flying Raijin level 2, said Minato as he ended the Rasengan and marked the masked man with his Hiraition mark. After a while, the masked man jumped out from the crater, his body battered and bleeding profusely from the wind-release Rasengan's devastating impact landed heavily upon an uprooted chunk of earth clutching the stub where his left hand once was. His voice hoarse and strained, he acknowledged his defeat, addressing Minato, who stood resolute amidst the wreckage of the battlefield. "You got me," he admitted, his eyes filled with a mixture of awe and resignation. "This is what is meant by elusive. I should never have let down my guard." As the masked man's words hung in the air, Minato vanished, reappearing in an instant directly in front of his adversary. With a swift and precise motion, he plunged his three-pronged kunai into the masked man's chest, simultaneously placing his hand upon the man's heart. Caught off guard by the sudden reappearance and the swiftness of Minato's attack, the masked man could only gasp in surprise as he realized the true nature of Minato's prowess. Flying Raijin Jutsu. So that's it, he marked my body somewhere. He thought, his mind struggling to comprehend the blinding speed and precision with which Minato had executed his attack. As Minato's hand rested upon the masked man's chest, a seal matrix materialized, its intricate patterns glowing with an otherworldly light. The masked man felt the connection between himself and the Ninetales severed in an instant. "A contract seal. He intends to separate the Ninetales from me." He thought, a wave of despair washing over him as the extent of his defeat became painfully clear. With this, he declared, his voice resonating with authority, "The Ninetales no longer belongs to you. A contract seal. He intends to separate the Ninetales from me." He thought, a wave of despair washing over him as the extent of his defeat became painfully clear. With this, he declared, his voice resonating with authority, "The Ninetales no longer belongs to you." While Minato was engaged in a fierce battle with the masked man back in the Hidden Leaf Village, chaos reigned as the Ninetales wreaked havoc. The towering beast, unleashed from its seal by the masked man's interference, rampaged through the village streets, its massive claws tearing down buildings and sending debris flying through the air. Panic-stricken civilians screamed and fled, their cries for help swallowed by the deafening roar of the Ninetales. The village's shinobi, including the elite Umbu, scrambled to contain the destruction, but their efforts were futile against the overwhelming power of the rampaging beast. From his vantage point atop a building, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, watched the unfolding disaster with a heavy heart. He knew that time was running out and that he had to act decisively to protect his village from the Ninetales' wrath. Gathering his chakra, Hiruzen addressed the shinobi gathered before him, his voice stern but laced with determination. "You must avoid damage to the village. Chase the Ninetales outside the village walls." The shinobi nodded in unison, their faces grim with determination. "Yes, sir," they chorused. "Buy me time so that I can execute my jutsu." Hiruzen continued, his gaze unwavering. "Do not slow down the attack." With a resounding "Yes, sir, let's go," one of the Umbu shinobi took the lead, guiding the assembled ninja towards the rampaging Ninetales. Their mission was clear: to distract the colossal beast long enough for the third Hokage to prepare his powerful jutsu. The Umbu launched a barrage of kunais at the Ninetales, each one equipped with explosive tags to amplify the impact. The Ninetales, however, reacted with astonishing agility, swatting the incoming projectiles away with its massive paws, sending the Umbu shinobi flying backward. Meanwhile, atop the building, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, had gathered enough chakra to execute his jutsu. With a determined bite on his right thumb drawing blood, he swiftly performed the hand signs boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. "Ninja art, summoning Monkey King Enma," he proclaimed, slamming his hand onto the ground. A cloud of white smoke engulfed the rooftop, concealing the surrounding area from view. As the smoke dissipated, a majestic figure materialized, Enma the Monkey King. Enma, a towering figure with white fur and long flowing hair, emerged from the smoke, his eyes locking onto the Ninetales. "The Ninetales, huh?" he remarked, his voice laced with a hint of surprise. "So the seal was broken." Hiruzen nodded grimly, his gaze unwavering. "We're going to chase it out of the village with the adamantine Nai-Oi," he declared, his voice resonating with authority. "Got it, transform," Enma exclaimed, his voice booming. In an instant, his physical form shifted into a long, sturdy staff, its surface gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. As Enma soared through the air, Hiruzen grasped the staff with a firm grip, his resolve unwavering. "Let's go, Enma," Hiruzen commanded, his voice resonating with determination. Extend. With a surge of Hiruzen's chakra, the staff elongated at an astonishing speed, transforming into a colossal weapon that dwarfed even the Ninetales' imposing form. With a powerful thrust, the staff struck the Ninetales, pushing the monstrous beast backward. The Ninetales, momentarily stunned by the unexpected blow, stumbled backward, its massive body crashing against the village's outer walls. Taking advantage of the beast's disorientation, Hiruzen issued a final command. "Eve, pushed it out of the village," he declared, his voice echoing through the battlefield. "Don't let up, keep at him." As one, the Hidden Leaf shinobi charged forward, their chakra ignited with renewed vigor. They swarmed the Nine Tails, their combined attacks raining down upon the beast like a relentless storm. Amidst the chaos of the battle, Hiruzen's thoughts drifted towards Minato. "Minato, where are you?" he wondered, a hint of concern flickering in his eyes. The Hidden Leaf Village needed Minato's unparalleled speed and strategic brilliance, but he was nowhere to be seen. Back in the midst of their intense battle, Minato watched as the masked man retreated to the top of a nearby tree, his body battered and bleeding from Minato's wind-release Rasengan attack. The masked man's left hand, now a bloody stump, throbbed in pain, and his movements were noticeably slower and more hesitant. "That Rasengan, it affected my healing abilities," the masked man thought to himself, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Despite his injuries, his eyes remained cold and determined, his resolve unshaken. "I must hand it to you, fourth Hokage," he acknowledged, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You wounded me and managed to release the Nine Tails from my control. However, the Nine Tails will be mine eventually." Minato listened intently, his expression grave. The masked man's words echoed ominously, hinting at a grand scheme that extended far beyond the destruction of the Hidden Leaf Village. "I am going to rule the world," the masked man continued, his voice laced with a chilling ambition. "And there are so many ways to go about doing that." With that final declaration, the masked man vanished into thin air, leaving Minato standing alone amidst the wreckage of the battlefield. His mind raced, analyzing the masked man's parting words. That tone, he's serious about that, Minato thought to himself, a sense of foreboding washing over him. The masked man's ambition posed a grave threat not only to the Hidden Leaf Village but to the entire world. Without wasting another moment, Minato activated his Flying Thunder God technique, teleporting away from the battlefield. Minato appeared atop the Hokage rock faces just as the nine-tailed fox was preparing another tailed beast bomb. "This is dire," he muttered and promptly teleported away. Hiruzen collapsed to his knees in exhaustion, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Is he going to do that again?" he asked, his eyes widening as he saw the nine-tailed fox preparing another tailed beast bomb. Minato reappeared near the nine-tailed fox and quickly threw a Hiraishin kunai above the creature. In a flash, he teleported to the kunai above the nine-tailed fox with lightning-fast hand signs: boar, dog, bird, monkey. Ram! Minato shouted, summoning jutsu. A giant red toad appeared atop the nine-tailed fox, its massive body crushing the creature beneath it. Hiruzen, upon seeing the toad, exclaimed, "That's the shinobi." Surrounding him finished his sentence, "It's the fourth Hokage." Minato stood atop the toad, his eyes closed as he contemplated the masked man's parting words, "I will rule the world." With a newfound resolve, he turned to the toad and said, "Hold down the nine-tailed fox for just a while, Gamabunta-san." "Gamabunta," the toad grunted, "that's going to be tough even for me." Minato focused his chakra, knowing that teleporting something as massive as the nine-tailed fox would require as much chakra. Meanwhile, the nine-tailed fox had charged its tailed beast bomb and was poised to unleash it. Hiruzen and the other shinobi braced themselves for the impending impact. But before the nine-tailed fox could unleash its devastating attack, both it and Minato vanished. Gamabunta, now without its burden, plopped onto the ground with a resounding thud. "Minato, did he teleport away with the nine-tailed fox?" Hiruzen asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Just as he finished his sentence, a massive explosion erupted in the distance beyond the mountains. "That way!" Hiruzen shouted, urging his fellow shinobi to follow him as he dashed towards the source of the explosion. Having teleported the nine-tailed fox to a remote location, Minato reappeared with Kushina and their two children. With his wife and eldest son in each arm and Kushina holding baby Naruto, Minato gasped, "I must put up a barrier immediately." His chakra, depleted from the arduous teleportation, was nearly spent. Noticing Minato's exhaustion, Kushina reassured him, "I can still do it, Minato." With a surge of determination, 5 crimson chakra chains emerged from her back, entwining and restraining the nine-tailed fox while simultaneously erecting a protective barrier. The immense exertion caused her to cough, her strength waning. "Kushina," Minato called out, gently taking baby Naruto from her arms after placing their unconscious eldest son Kaido on the ground. Sensing his mother's discomfort, Naruto began to cry. "Did I wake you up, Naruto?" Kushina asked, her voice laced with concern. "Kushina," Minato said, his voice heavy with emotion, his gaze fixed on his beloved wife. Kushina, her eyes glistening with tears, responded, "I'm going to take the nine-tailed fox with me to my death. With the little chakra I have left, I can seal it away, delaying its revival and saving you all." A bittersweet smile graced Kushina's lips as she continued, "Thank you for everything you've done for me." Minato's eyes welled up with tears as he confessed, "Kushina, it's because of you that I am the fourth Hokage. You've made me the man I am today and a father." And yet Kushina reached out and gently wiped away Minato's tears. "Minato, don't give me that look. I'm happy that you loved me, and today is Naruto's birthday. If I were to imagine me alive and our future together, the four of us as a family, I can't see us having anything but a happy life." She paused, her gaze lingering on Minato's tear-stricken face. "If I were allowed just one regret, it's that I won't be able to see Kaido and Naruto grow up. How I wish I could have seen that." Minato stood tall, his eyes burning with determination. "Kushina," he said, his voice resonating with conviction, "there is no need for you to die with the nine-tailed fox. Preserve what little chakra you have left so you can see our sons grow up." He wiped away the tears that streamed down his cheeks, his gaze unwavering. When Kaido told us about his dream, he said, I split the nine-tailed fox and sealed one half in you. I didn't understand then, but I do now. If we sealed the full nine-tailed fox in you, you will die due to the immense chakra. But if we seal half the nine-tailed fox in you with the 8-trigram sealing technique, there's a chance you will survive. The only way I know to split the nine-tailed fox's chakra is to use the Reaper Death Seal. Kushina's eyes widened in shock as she heard Minato's words. But the caster of that jutsu, she exclaimed, her voice trembling with fear. Minato placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, his eyes filled with determination. And one more thing, he said, his voice laced with wisdom. The strategically unwise. If you take the nine-tailed fox and its seal with you when you die, there won't be a Jinchuriki around when it reemerges. That will upset the balance of power between the villages. He paused, his gaze falling upon baby Naruto in his arms. As for the other half of the nine-tailed fox, Minato continued, his voice filled with resolve, I will seal it inside Naruto with the 8-trigram sealing technique. I know what you want to say. But remember what Master Jiraiya said about world upheaval and the calamities that would follow. 2 things were confirmed for me today. That masked man who attacked you today is a harbinger of disaster, and the one who will stop him is this child. Minato's eyes shone with conviction, as he declared he will open up the future as a Jinchuriki. I don't know why, but am convinced of this. With that, he gently placed Naruto on the ground. Kushina's voice trembled as she protested, but Minato, his resolve unwavering, stood tall and began weaving the hand signs for the Reaper Death Seal. With lightning-fast precision, his fingers formed the intricate sequence: snake, boar, ram, rabbit, dog, rat, bird, horse, snake, clap. Reaper Death Seal, he proclaimed, his voice echoing with determination. A translucent figure materialized behind Minato, its skeletal form reaching out with ghostly hands. Let's place our trust in our child, Minato declared, his eyes filled with unwavering belief in his son. He's our son after all. Just outside the barrier, Hiruzen's eyes widened in shock as he recognized the ominous hand signs. Those signs, he murmured, his voice laced with disbelief. Yes, it's the Reaper Death Seal. Kushina's heart sank as she witnessed Minato's unwavering determination. Our son, she trailed off, her voice choked with emotion. He's our son, which is why I don't want to place such a heavy burden on him. Her voice grew stronger as she voiced her concerns, her words echoing with maternal love and protectiveness. And why use the Reaper Death Seal? Even if there's a small chance to see them grow up, there's no need for you to die. I want you to stay by their side as they grow, to protect them. I don't understand, why must Naruto be sacrificed for the sake of maintaining balance between villages? Why must you sacrifice yourself for me? Her words struck Minato deeply, his heart aching with the pain he was causing his beloved Kushina. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze filled with love and understanding. Abandoning one's nation and village is akin to abandoning one's child. You, of all people, having witnessed the destruction of your own homeland, should understand the harsh life that awaits those without a country. Minato declared, his gaze resolute, meeting Kushina's with unwavering determination. Moreover, our family, we are shinobi, he emphasized, his voice filled with pride. And even if I were to survive this encounter, I am no match for you. There are things that only you as their mother can impart, things that I cannot. That is a mother's role, he explained, gently cradling Naruto in his arms. I am not doing this solely for you. I am doing this for them as well. His eyes met Kushina's, conveying a depth of love and resolve that transcended words. I will gladly lay down my life for my sons. It is my duty as their father, he affirmed, his voice resonating with unwavering conviction. Meanwhile, Hiruzen, the third Hokage, desperately attempted to breach the barrier erected to contain the nine-tailed fox. 2 Konoha shinobi approached him, their faces etched with concern. Lord Third, what's wrong? One of them inquired. Hiruzen pounded against the barrier, his efforts proving futile. It's no use, I cannot break through this barrier. It prevent the nine-tailed fox from escaping, he explained, his voice laced with urgency. Those 2, they're planning to seal the nine-tailed fox themselves. Meanwhile, Hiruzen, the third Hokage, desperately attempted to breach the barrier erected to contain the nine-tailed fox. 2 Konoha shinobi approached him, their faces etched with concern. Lord Third, what's wrong? One of them inquired. Hiruzen pounded against the barrier, his efforts proving futile. It's no use, I cannot break through this barrier. It prevent the nine-tailed fox from escaping, he explained, his voice laced with urgency. Those 2, they're planning to seal the nine-tailed fox themselves. After Minato had managed to calm Kushina down, he turned towards the nine-tails. The nine-tails, pinned by Kushina's chakra chains, struggled against the restraints, but to no avail. Minato nodded, and then the transparent figure of the Shinigami behind Minato reached out its hand towards Minato's spiritual form. The hand passed right through Minato, and it burst out from Minato's front, ripping through his jonin vest. The hand extended toward the nine-tails. The hand, exuding an aura of otherworldly power, burst forth from Minato's chest, piercing through his Hokage vest and reaching out towards the nine-tails. The monstrous beast, sensing its impending doom, roared in defiance, cursing Minato's audacity. Seal, Minato commanded, his voice resolute despite the immense strain he was under. The Shinigami's hand, imbued with a power beyond mortal comprehension, grasped the nine-tails with an unyielding grip. The agonizing cries of the tailed beast filled the air as half of its chakra was forcibly extracted and sealed within Minato. My body, it's going numby, never expected such a massive amount of chakra, Minato gasped, struggling to contain the nine-tails' immense chakra. The strain was immense, testing the limits of his physical and spiritual fortitude. While Minato was catching his breath, the Ninetales had shrunk to half its original size, its body trembling from the ordeal. "Damn you," the Ninetales cursed, its voice filled with venom. Outside the barrier, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, watched the unfolding events with a mixture of shock and awe. As he witnessed the Ninetales shrinking in size, he realized that Minato had indeed employed the Shiki Fujin, the Reaper Death Seal, a forbidden jutsu of immense power. "It's the Reaper Death Seal after all," Hiruzen muttered, his voice laced with both admiration and concern. "He actually used it." The surrounding shinobi too were astonished by Minato's actions. "But the Ninetales wasn't the fourth able to complete the seal?" one of them questioned, his voice filled with disbelief. The Ninetales, though diminished in size, still radiated a menacing aura, raising doubts about the effectiveness of Minato's sealing technique. After regaining his strength, Minato gently cradled baby Naruto in his arms and turned to Kushina. "I'll first seal the remaining half of the Ninetales within Naruto," he explained, his voice laced with determination. "Then I'll transfer the half sealed within me to you, Kushina." With a swiftness that belied his exhaustion, Minato performed a one-handed seal. A surge of chakra erupted from his palm, etching a complex seal matrix onto the ground. As the matrix glowed with an ethereal light, a sealing altar materialized. "Now for the 8 trigrams seal," Minato declared, his voice resolute. He strode towards the altar, gently placing Naruto upon its center. The Ninetales, still reeling from the ordeal of being split, glared at the imposing altar, a low growl rumbling in its throat. "A sealing altar?" it questioned, its voice dripping with venom. "Does he intend to imprison me once more?" And within that infant Kushina weakened from the childbirth, and the intense chakra drain, gasped and began to cough violently, spitting out blood. Minato, alarmed by her condition, rushed back to her side, his heart pounding with worry. "Kushina, are you all right?" he inquired anxiously. The Ninetales, sensing the opportunity presented by Minato and Kushina's distraction, seized the moment to strike. With a ferocious roar, it raised its massive claws and lunged towards baby Naruto, its eyes gleaming with malicious intent. "Right now," the Ninetales bellowed, its voice echoing through the surrounding, shattering the tense silence. Kaido slowly stirred his mind, a haze of confusion. His head was throbbing and he was disoriented. He could hear a woman shouting something, but he couldn't make out the words. He could also hear a man saying something, but it was all a garbled mess to his ears. The roar of agony only worsened his headache. He heard the woman coughing and her voice sounded familiar. Kaido opened his eyes, but his senses were immediately assaulted. His mind struggled to catch up to the events that had transpired. He remembered that it was Naruto's birth and his mother had been kidnapped. He was about to be killed by that masked man. He jolted awake, looking at his surroundings. His head throbbed, making it difficult to comprehend the situation. Just then he saw it. His vision was still blurry, but he could make out both his mother Kushina and his father Minato jumping in front of a sealing altar. A massive claw was bearing down on them. Just then everything slowed down as Kaido desperately tried to do something. He shouted no as he watched his parents about to be impaled by the Ninetales' claw. Just then four chakra chains burst out of his back, rushing towards his parents to stop them from being impaled. Time seemed to stand still as the Ninetales' claw reached Naruto. It stopped just a few inches away from the sleeping infant. Tears streaming down his face, Kaido watched in horror as both his parents were impaled by the Ninetales. The chakra chains restrained the Ninetales' claw, but it was too late. Kaido repeatedly said no over and over again. "Kushina, you didn't have to do that. Like I said, this was the father's duty," said Minato, looking at Kushina, who was panting. "You could have stayed with them. Then all the more since his mother," Kushina said, panting from the exertion. "This is the first time I lost an argument. I'm sorry." "Why you?" the Ninetales growled as it saw that its plan was thwarted. "It's okay, Kushina, I'll seal your remaining chakra using the 8 trigram seal, so you can meet Naruto," said Minato as he ran through the summoning jutsu hand sign: boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. Kaido's heart-wrenching cries of "Mom, Dad" pierced the silence of their surrounding, jolting Minato and Kushina from their somber contemplation. They turned towards their son, their eyes filled with a mix of love, sorrow, and pride. Kushina, her voice laced with emotion, managed a weak smile and said, "Kaido-kun, you seem to have inherited my ability." Tears trickled down her cheeks as she continued, "I'm so proud of you, Kaido-kun. But I'm so sorry, Kaido-kun. Mom and Dad won't be able to stay with you and your little brother Naruto. He's going to have to bear the same burden as me. Can I count on you to look after your brother?" Amidst Kushina's heartfelt words to Kaido, Minato turned his attention to the toad he had summoned. The toad, upon seeing Minato and the Ninetales, exclaimed in disbelief. "The Ninetales, what Lord Fourth too? What does this mean?" Minato, with a resolute expression, replied, "Giratora, I'm entrusting you with the sealing formula's key. Deliver it immediately to Master Jiraiya and keep it safely guarded." After accepting the key with utmost responsibility, Giratora affirmed, "You have my word. I confirm the key is in my possession. And now I depart." As Giratora disappeared in a puff of smoke, Minato turned back to Kushina, his eyes filled with love and determination. "Kushina, my time is running out. I'm going to initiate the 8 trigram seal. I also want to leave some of my chakra within Naruto. It will be a long while before we can see him again. Therefore, we should impart our final words to them. Minato's gaze lingered on Naruto, his sleeping infant son, as he spoke these poignant words. Kushina's voice, laced with love and concern, filled the surrounding as she spoke her final words to her sons Naruto and Kaido. Her words echoed with the wisdom and guidance of a mother who had dedicated her life to their well-being. Naruto, Kaido, she began, her voice trembling with emotion, don't be picky eaters. Eat plenty of food so you can grow big and strong. And make sure you bathe every day and stay warm. Kaido-kun, I know you like to stay up late, but as the older brother you need to set a good example for your little brother. Make sure you both get enough sleep. Her words were simple yet profound, reflecting the deep love she had for her sons. She wanted them to grow into strong, healthy individuals capable of facing the challenges that life would inevitably throw their way. And make friends, she continued, her voice softening. You don't need a lot of friends, just a few that you can truly trust. I wasn't very good at making friends, but I know you both can do better than I did. Kushina's words resonated with the truth that friendship was one of life's most precious treasures. She wanted her sons to find solace and support in the company of true companions who would stand by them through thick and thin. Keep up with your studies and practice your ninjutsu hard, she advised, her voice laced with pride. I'm sure Kaido-kun won't mind teaching you. He's really good at it, just like his father, you know. And remember, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, so don't get too depressed if you can't do something well. Kushina's words instilled in her sons the importance of perseverance and self-belief. She encouraged them to embrace their strengths while acknowledging their weaknesses, understanding that setbacks were merely stepping stones to success. Oh, and this is important, she added, her voice taking on a more serious tone. It's about the 3 prohibitions for a shinobi. Be extra careful about lending and borrowing money, she advised, her voice laced with caution. Put your mission wages into your savings account. No alcohol until you're 20. Too much can ruin your health, so drink in moderation. Another prohibition is women, she continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone. I'm a woman, so I don't know too much about this, but all you need to remember is that this world is made up of men and women. So it's only natural to take an interest in girls, but just don't get hooked on bad women. Find someone just like me. Speaking of the 3 prohibitions, be wary of Jiraiya-sensei, you know, she added, a hint of mischief in her voice. He's a great ninja, but he has a habit of getting into trouble. Kushina's words were a playful warning, reflecting her understanding of Jiraiya's penchant for unconventional methods and his tendency to attract attention. Naruto, from now on you're going to face a lot of pain and hardships. But always be true to yourself. Have a dream and have the confidence to make that dream come true, Kaido-kun, she said, her voice filled with love and tenderness. I know it's going to be the hardest for you. We may not be there to watch you both grow, but always know that you carry the essence of our love within you. You are a beacon of hope, my little hero. Be the amazing person I know you will become. Oh, so much more that I want to pass on to you both, she lamented, her voice heavy with emotion. I wish I could stay with you longer. Her words were a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of life, the precious moments that could never be regained. She longed to spend more time with her sons to nurture their growth and guide them through their childhood. I love you both, she confessed, her voice choked with tears. Minato, I'm sorry I used up your time. Oh, it's okay, Kaito. Naruto, Minato muttered, his voice laced with a mix of sorrow and resignation. My message to both of you is the necklace I gave you, Kaito, holds everything you both need. You just need to unseal it. I guess other than that, it's the same as your nagging mother's Atragram seal. With a final surge of strength, Minato pushed the last vestiges of his chakra towards Naruto, completing the sealing process. The 9-tailed fox's chakra was now bound within Naruto's body, a formidable power, both a blessing and a curse. Exhausted and succumbing to his injuries, Minato's body slumped to the ground, his eyes closing for the last time. Kushina, her own life force waning, could only watch as her beloved husband slipped away. Mom, Dad, Kaito cried out, his voice filled with anguish. He stumbled towards his parents, his young heart shattered by their impending loss. As the barrier surrounding the hideout crumbled, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, along with 2 other shinobi, rushed to the scene. They found Kaito cradling his mother's head in his lap, tears streaming down his face. No, please don't leave me, Kaito sobbed, his voice trembling with despair. It's all my fault. Kushina, her voice weak and fading, managed to muster a faint smile. It's okay, Kaito-kun, she said gently. It's not your fault. Kaito, despite his grief, felt an instinctive urge to do something, anything to save his mother. He felt a strange pull, a primal instinct guiding his actions. Confused and conflicted, Kaito realized what this could be. He had inherited the Uzumaki clan's unique ability, the healing bite. Without hesitation, he offered his wrist to his mother's mouth. Mom, bite me quickly, Kaito exclaimed urgently. Kushina, her own consciousness fading, weakly sank her teeth into Kaito's wrist. She felt a surge of warmth and vitality coursing through her veins. As Kaito focused his energy on healing his mother, he became oblivious to his surroundings, the world around him fading into a blur. Hiruzen, having given the dying mother and son a moment of privacy, had been gently holding Naruto, trying to soothe his cries. When they noticed what was happening, one of the shinobi turned to Hiruzen, his voice laced with confusion. Lord Third, what is he doing? Another shinobi exclaimed in astonishment. Look, her wound, it's healing. Hiruzen, his brow furrowed in contemplation, wondered aloud, what is this? Is it one of the Uzumaki clan's Kekii Genkai? Observing the hole where the nine-tailed fox's nail had pierced his mother's body, Kaido instinctively increased the amount of chakra he was channeling. Although he felt the strain of the healing bite, he ignored the discomfort and continued to pump more chakra into his mother's body. After a while, he noticed that the wound had fully healed. However, a nagging feeling told him that he needed to give his mother a little more. Determined to ensure her survival, he pushed himself even further, unaware that his hair had begun to turn white. One of the jonin, noticing the change in Kaido's appearance, exclaimed, Lord Third, his hair is turning white. Hiruzen, his heart pounding with concern, realized that Kaido was using his own life force to heal his mother. He's using his life force to heal her. I have to stop him before it's too late, he thought to himself. Just as Hiruzen was about to intervene, Kaido's hair had nearly turned half white. He looked at his mother, her breathing steady and her eyes closed. With a sigh of relief, Kaido collapsed, fainting from exhaustion. Hiruzen and the other shinobi rushed towards them and quickly checked their vital signs. Hiruzen, a wave of relief washing over him, declared, they're both alive. Quick, we have to get them to the hospital. With that, they carefully carried Kushina and Kaido back to the village. Just as Hiruzen was about to intervene, Kaido's hair had nearly turned half white. He looked at his mother, her breathing steady and her eyes closed. With a sigh of relief, Kaido collapsed, fainting from exhaustion. Hiruzen and the other shinobi rushed towards them and quickly checked their vital signs. Hiruzen, a wave of relief washing over him, declared, they're both alive. Quick, we have to get them to the hospital. With that, they carefully carried Kushina and Kaido back to the village. In a swift dash through the forest, the third Hokage, accompanied by two other shinobi, urgently made their way back to the village. The real Hiruzen carried baby Naruto cradled in his arms, while a shadow clone shouldered the unconscious Kushina. The accompanying shinobi bore the heavy burden of Minato's lifeless body and the injured Kaido. Upon reaching the village, they proceeded directly to the Konoha hospital. Instructing the medical shinobi, Hiruzen urgently commanded, quickly get them the medical attention they need. Their survival is our top priority. He pointed emphatically at Kushina, Kaido, and the infant Naruto. Reacting promptly to the directive, the medical shinobi swiftly took charge of Kushina, Kaido, and baby Naruto, relieving them with urgency in their steps. They rushed towards the emergency room. As they entered the hospital, the weight of the situation became palpable. Hiruzen's heart sank at the sight of Minato's lifeless form, and the shock on the faces of those present mirrored the collective grief that enveloped the hospital. The fourth Hokage's demise sent ripples of sorrow through the medical facility, emphasizing the gravity of the events that had unfolded in the forest. As the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, emerged from the Konoha Hospital, an Umbu operative materialized silently behind Hiruzen, awaiting orders. Your orders, Lord Third, inquired the Umbu with a vigilant stance. Having safely delivered the fourth Hokage's family to the hospital, Hiruzen pivoted to address the Umbu. Send 2 Umbu squads to guard them. Their safety is our top priority. They are the only ones who can explain what happened today. Also have an Umbu squad accompany me, commanded Hiruzen, with a tone reflecting both authority and concern. Hai Sandaime-sama acknowledged the Umbu obediently. The Umbu squad followed closely behind, their movements swift and silent as they trailed the third Hokage towards the site where Kushina had given birth. Upon reaching the location, they were met with a scene of devastation. The Umbu station there lay lifeless, their bodies scattered amidst the remnants of a fierce battle. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the carnage, his heart sinking with a heavy thud. He raised his hand, gesturing towards the Umbu squad. Search, he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The Umbu scattered their eyes, scanning the surroundings for any clues that could unravel the mystery that lay before them. Hiruzen, unable to bear the sight of his fallen comrades, turned and made his way towards the Umbu base, his footsteps heavy with grief. As he entered the base, a wave of sorrow washed over him. There, amidst the chaos and destruction, lay the lifeless body of his beloved wife Biwako. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and love, were now closed forever, her face pale and lifeless. Hiruzen's heart clenched with an agonizing pang of grief. "Oh, Biwako," he cried out, his voice choked with emotion. He sank to his knees, his hands trembling as he cradled her lifeless form. After a while, the Umbu returned with their findings. Hiruzen, with a heavy heart, directed lock down the space and investigate what happened here. Carrying the lifeless form of his wife, Hiruzen left the premises, leaving the Umbu to unravel the mysteries that had unfolded in the wake of the Nine-Tails attack. Back at Konoha Hospital, Hiruzen gently placed Biwako's body on a gurney, his heart heavy with grief. Turning to the head of the hospital, he inquired about the condition of Kushina and the children. "Lady Kushina is stable," the head of the hospital informed him, his voice somber. "However, her chakra coils have been severely damaged. Kaido has sustained a concussion, a broken wrist, and a severe case of chakra exhaustion. The baby thankfully is unharmed." Hiruzen nodded, a hint of relief flickering in his eyes. "Good," he replied, his voice firm despite the turmoil within him. "Inform me immediately when they awaken." With that, Hiruzen turned and left the hospital, his mind consumed by the task at hand, restoring order and peace to his beloved village. The recent events had plunged Konoha into chaos and despair, but Hiruzen, the steadfast third Hokage, was determined to guide his people through the darkness and towards a brighter future. The atmosphere in the Hidden Leaf village was heavy with grief and sorrow. The aftermath of the Kyuubi attack had left indelible scars on the village both physically and emotionally. The once lively and vibrant village now bore the wounds of destruction, and the mourning faces of its inhabitants reflected the pain they felt. In the village's cemetery, a solemn gathering of shinobi had assembled to pay their respects to the fallen and honor the heroic sacrifice of the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze. The air was thick with sorrow as the village mourned not only the lives lost but also the loss of their beloved leader. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, stood at the forefront addressing the somber crowd. His voice carried the weight of the collective grief as he spoke words of tribute to Minato. Minato, you gave your life to protect the Hidden Leaf village and its future, he said, his tone reflecting both admiration and sorrow. Amidst the mourners stood Kakashi Hatake. His Sharingan eye hidden behind a mask, Kakashi grieved silently, his thoughts filled with memories of his late sensei. The words of the third Hokage resonated in his mind, and he couldn't help but think Minato-sensei. As the village buried its fallen comrades, the legacy of Minato Namikaze lived on in the hearts of those who remained. The fourth Hokage's selfless sacrifice had become a symbol of unwavering devotion to the village, and his memory would forever be etched in the annals of the Hidden Leaf's history. After the funeral ceremony, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, convened the village's elder and Jonin council to address the dire situation. The meeting room was filled with tension and grief, the weight of the recent tragedy hanging heavy in the air. We repelled the Nine Tails. Hiruzen began, his voice heavy with sorrow, but the sacrifice was much too great. As Koharu Udatane, an influential member of the Elder Council, interjected, this is no time for lament. The Hokage's seat is vacant. We must decide on a successor quickly. Shikaku Nara, the Jonin commander, suggested, perhaps someone from the generation after Minato. Koharu countered, we have nurtured fine Jonin, but they all lack the experience to rule over a village. Shikaku asked, is there anyone else? Danzo Shimura, another influential figure, stepped forward, but Hiruzen abruptly stood up, silencing him. Cannot be helped, Hiruzen declared, his voice resolute. This is a critical time. I shall take over as Hokage. Koharu nodded in agreement. If you are willing. Danzo, however, was not so easily appeased. You stepped down once, he scoffed. Are you up to the task? Truth be told, even though you went after the Nine Tails, you failed to save the fourth Hokage. Hamura Mitokado, another member of the Elder Council, defended Hiruzen. That is uncalled for. Koharu added, and where were you at that time? Danzo glared at Koharu, his eyes burning with resentment. Hiruzen chuckled softly, breaking the tension. Just indulge this old man, he said, his voice laced with a hint of sarcasm. Let me fill in as Hokage until we can groom the next one. Danzo's glare intensified, his ambition for the Hokage position burning brighter than ever. He knew that Hiruzen's appointment was merely a temporary solution, and he was determined to seize the opportunity when the time was right. The meeting concluded with a sense of uncertainty, the future of Konohagakure hanging in the balance. Hiruzen, despite his age and weariness, had stepped up to lead once again, but the lingering question of succession remained unanswered. Following the meeting with the Jonin Council, where the third Hokage was reinstated as the village leader, he convened with the village elders in the Hokage office to address the pressing situation. Hiruzen, Koharu inquired, her voice laced with concern, how could the Nine Tails attack the village? I thought everything was under wraps. Hamura nodded in agreement, adding, yes, the Nine Tails was summoned within Konoha's. Sighing heavily, Hiruzen replied, I discovered Bawako and the Umbu assigned to guard Kushina dead at the scene. I suspect a third party's involvement, which would also explain Minato's not helping till the end. Taking a drag from his pipe, Hiruzen continued, but these are merely speculations until we can gather concrete evidence. Unfortunately, both Kushina and young Kaido remain unconscious, and the doctors are unsure when they will awaken. Disrupting the somber silence, Danzo interjected with a snort, his eyes fixed on Hiruzen. It had to be the Uchiha. Many witnessed the Nine Tails' eyes, and they bore the unmistakable pattern of the Sharingan. The Uchiha were never content with Minato's ascension to the fourth Hokage position. Hiruzen hummed in response, thoughtfully contemplating Danzo's accusation. Danzo, you must not let your suspicions cloud your judgment. The Uchiha have suffered just as we all have during the Nine Tails attack. They too are victims of this tragedy. Undeterred, Danzo pressed his point. While that may be true, we cannot overlook the historical tension between the village and the Uchiha. They have long felt marginalized, and recent events have only exacerbated their grievances. We cannot dismiss the possibility that one of them may have orchestrated this attack. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. Danzo, I share your concerns, but making unfounded accusations without solid evidence will only further divide the village. Unity is essential now more than ever. Accusing the Uchiha without proof will only deepen the rifts within our community. Danzo's gaze hardened, his voice laced with conviction. Hiruzen, unity cannot come at the expense of our safety. If there's even a smidgen of doubt, we must investigate. The well-being of the village is paramount. Hiruzen let out a weary sigh, understanding the precarious balance he had to maintain. Danzo, I will not disregard the possibility, but we must proceed with caution. We will investigate discreetly without causing undue alarm. The last thing we need is internal conflict tearing the village apart. Once the initial cleanup of the extensive damage was underway, the third Hokage convened a meeting with the department heads and clan heads to address the village's reconstruction. Danzo spearheaded the meeting while the third Hokage and his advisors listened attentively. With a grim expression, Danzo outlined the devastating impact of the Ninetales attack, emphasizing the need for significant revisions to the village boundaries to facilitate the reconstruction efforts. In light of the recent destruction, Danzo declared, we have decided to implement a number of changes to the village layout. As part of this plan, we request that the Aburame clan relocate to this designated district. He gestured towards a specific area on the map spread out on the table. The Aburame clan head, known for their mastery of insects, nodded in acknowledgement of the request. Danzo continued, his voice firm and unwavering. The Nara clan's territory was spared from the Ninetales rampage, so they will remain in their current location. His gaze shifted towards Shikaku, the leader of the Nara clan, who nodded in understanding. The Leaf Police Force headquarters, which sustained significant damage, will be rebuilt in this area. Danzo continued, pointing to a spot on the map near the village's outskirts. And the Uchiha clan will relocate to this new district alongside the police headquarters. However, his words were abruptly interrupted by Fugaku Uchiha, the captain of the Konoha police force and the head of the Uchiha clan. With a stern voice that echoed through the room, Fugaku challenged Danzo's proposal. Lord Danzo, the Uchiha clan forms the backbone of the Leaf Police Force, safeguarding the Hidden Leaf from all threats. Relocating us so far from the village center would severely hinder our ability to respond swiftly in times of crisis. The other clan heads murmured in agreement, their voices resonating with Fugaku's concern. The Uchiha clan's proximity to the village center had always been crucial for their role as protectors, and moving them to a distant location would undoubtedly compromise their effectiveness. We have the Umbu Black Ops for such emergencies, Danzo stated, his gaze fixed on Fugaku. Fugaku's expression hardened as he turned his attention to the third Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi, ever the diplomat, responded to Fugaku's unspoken question. The Leaf Police do need to commute to the training grounds, do they not? This location is conveniently situated near an ideal training area. You can consider it your exclusive Uchiha training grounds. With that, Danzo continued, pointing to the map, in conjunction with the reconstruction of the Leaf Police headquarters, the Uchiha will also relocate. Homes and buildings that were spared will be. The meeting continued with the various adjustments and relocations proposed by Danzo for the village's reconstruction. Despite the tension, the leaders present begrudgingly accepted the necessity of these changes, understanding that the village needed to adapt to the aftermath of the Ninetales attack. With that, Danzo continued, pointing to the map, in conjunction with the reconstruction of the Leaf Police headquarters, the Uchiha will also relocate. Homes and buildings that were spared will be. The meeting continued with the various adjustments and relocations proposed by Danzo for the village's reconstruction. Despite the tension, the leaders present begrudgingly accepted the necessity of these changes, understanding that the village needed to adapt to the aftermath of the Ninetales attack. Weeks had passed since the Kyuubi's devastating attack on Konohagakure. In a quiet hospital room, Kushina Uzumaki lay still on a bed, her body ravaged by the traumatic events. The childbirth, the unsealing and extraction of the Ninetales, and the subsequent impalement by the monstrous beast had taken their toll. Suddenly, Kushina's eyelids fluttered, a faint flicker of life returning to her dormant form. The monitors attached to her began to beep erratically, alerting the medical staff. In a flurry of movement, doctors rushed into the room. Slowly, Kushina opened her eyes, blinking away the confusion that clouded her vision. As she did, the memories of the attack came rushing back, flooding her mind with a torrent of fear and pain. Tears welled up in Kushina's eyes as she croaked out, her voice hoarse from disuse. Minato Kaito Naruto. She attempted to rise, but the medical staff gently but firmly restrained her. Lady Kushina, you're in no condition to move, one of them said. Her voice cracking with desperation, she asked, Minato, my sons. The medic ninja tending to her hesitated, the words caught in his throat. After a long, painful pause, he finally spoke, I'm sorry, but Minato-sama. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. After a few seconds, he continued, your sons are fine. Your eldest is still unconscious, resting in the bed next to you. The baby is in a crib beside you. You can see him after the checkup is complete. Hearing this, Kushina burst into tears, the confirmation of Minato's death hitting her with the force of a blow. While she was being examined by the medic ninja Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage was notified of Kushina's awakening. After ensuring Kushina's stable condition, a nurse entrusted baby Naruto into her arms. Once the nurse completed her checkup and exited the room, Kushina directed all her attention to Naruto. With a tender touch, she brushed a stray strand of his unruly hair away and planted a gentle kiss on his forehead. A small content smile adorned Kushina's face as she cradled baby Naruto in her embrace. Naruto, with his large, curious blue eyes, gazed up at his mother, blissfully unaware of recent events. Kushina, in turn, gently rocked him back and forth, accompanying the soothing motion with a soft lullaby to comfort both herself and the baby. Whispering, she remarked, you have blonde hair and blue eyes, Naruto, just like your daddy, her eyes welling up with a blend of sorrow and love. Glancing to her right, Kushina noticed her other son Kaido still lying unconscious. A smile graced her lips as she observed the peacefulness that sleep bestowed upon him. Reaching out, she gently stroked her elder son's hair, now a striking mix of red and white at the tips, a detail that sparked concern within her. Reflecting on her own survival, Kushina found herself at a loss. Her last recollection was being on the verge of death in Kaido's arms. Seeking answers, she inquired with the medic Nin about the circumstances leading to her survival. The response revealed that Hiruzen had brought her in, citing a severe case of chakra exhaustion and damage to her chakra coils. Perplexed, Kushina delved further, questioning why Kaido remained unconscious. They explained that he suffered from an even more severe case of chakra exhaustion, surpassing her own. The knocking on the door broke the quiet tension that had settled in the room. Kushina, startled from her thoughts, called out, "Come in," her voice still raspy from exhaustion. The door creaked open, revealing the familiar figure of Hiruzen Sarutobi, adorned in his Hokage robes. A look of warmth and relief softened his features as he saw Kushina awake. "Kushina," he greeted kindly, "it's good to see you awake. How are you feeling?" Smiling faintly, Kushina managed to reply, "I'm doing well, Lord Third." Hiruzen's gaze shifted to the small bundle cradled in her arms. He chuckled and asked, "And what have you named him?" Kushina's smile widened. As she looked down at the baby, her eyes filled with love. "His name is Naruto," she announced, after the main character in Jiraiya Sensei's novel. Hiruzen nodded knowingly, a small smile playing on his lips. "A fitting name for a young shinobi with such potential," he said, his voice filled with pride. They continued their conversation for a while, engaging in light-hearted banter and exchanging news of the village. But beneath the surface of normalcy, a deeper understanding flowed between them. They both knew the gravity of the situation, the sacrifices made, and the challenges that lay ahead. After exchanging pleasantries, Hiruzen cleared his throat and said, "I understand you have many questions, Kushina, as do I. So let me answer yours first." Kushina leaned forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. "How long has it been, Lord Third?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "And how am I alive? Not that I'm complaining, but I had a hole in my torso." Hiruzen, his brow furrowed in thought, replied, "What is the last thing you remember?" Kushina, her eyes wide with confusion, stammered, "The last thing I remember is Kaido crying over me." Hiruzen met her gaze with a thoughtful expression. "It has been 2 weeks since then, Kushina," he began. "As for your survival, the answer lies with your son Kaido." Kushina's eyes widened in surprise. "Kaido?" she echoed, her brows furrowing. But how Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped together. "It seems Kaido has awakened a new Kekkai Genkai," he explained, his voice low and serious. "A rare and powerful ability that allows him to heal others through." He paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Through bites." Kushina gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Through bites?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Hiruzen nodded. "Yes. It appears that Kaido can channel his chakra through the bite wound, transferring it to the person he bites and promoting healing." He looked at Kushina, his gaze filled with a mixture of sadness and admiration. "However, I don't think that was enough for you to have survived. To fully heal you, he had to use part of his life force. That's why the tips of his hair are white." Kushina gasped, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude for her son. She turned to look at Kaido, his face pale and peaceful in sleep, and tears welled up in her eyes. She reached out and gently stroked his hair, her touch filled with a tenderness that words could not express. Hiruzen, understanding the depth of Kushina's emotions, stood silently by her side, allowing her to have this precious moment with her son. He knew that the road to recovery would be long and arduous, but he also knew that Kushina's love for her sons would be her greatest strength. "I understand that this is a lot to process," he said gently, his voice filled with understanding. "Take all the time you need to collect yourself. I will be here when you are ready to talk." After a while, Hiruzen's tone turned serious as he asked Kushina, "I need to know what happened that day." Sighing, Kushina had been attempting to divert her thoughts from that painful topic, especially regarding Minato's death. However, she understood that the inevitable question was on the horizon. Composing herself, she began to explain the harrowing events. She recounted the intrusion of a masked man into the room, attempting to take baby Naruto hostage when they were momentarily distracted. Kaido's intervention thwarted the initial threat, but another masked man, likely a clone, silently approached and fatally attacked Lady Bawako and Taji, kidnapping Naruto in the process. Minato, in a desperate move, teleported away to rescue Naruto, who had been covered with explosive tags. Continuing her narrative, Kushina detailed how Kaido tried to prevent them from taking her, but the masked man succeeded. Chained and captive, she witnessed the masked man using the Sharingan to control the Nine Tails, to unleashing its destructive power upon the village. Minato ultimately rescued her, then went on to confront both the Nine Tails and the masked man in battle. As Kushina finished recounting the harrowing events, Hiruzen's brow furrowed deeply. "So just as I suspected, he thought there was a third party involved in this attack. And this man possessed the Sharingan. You never noticed him within the village before. This is indeed troubling." He turned to Kushina, his gaze serious. "And you say that this masked man escaped before Minato could finish him off?" Kushina, cradling baby Naruto close to her chest, tears welled up in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Just then, a sudden groan broke the tense silence. Both their heads turned towards the bed beside Kushina where Kaito lay. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing a glimmer of consciousness returning to his eyes. Kushina's heart leaped with joy as she watched her eldest son slowly stir. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave. Despite the immense pain and loss she had endured, seeing Kaito awake filled her with a renewed sense of hope and determination. Kushina reached out to gently touch Kaito's hand, offering a reassuring squeeze. "Kaito, sweetheart, can you hear me?" she whispered, her voice filled with a blend of hope and anxiety. His eyelashes fluttered again, and Kaito's eyes slowly opened, adjusting to the light in the room. Confusion and disorientation clouded his gaze at first, but as his vision cleared, he locked eyes with his mother. "Mom." Kaito's voice was weak, but the recognition in his eyes brought a surge of relief to Kushina's heart. With a gentle touch, Kushina reached out and caressed Kaito's cheek. "You're awake," she breathed, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Thank goodness you're awake." Kaito's eyes widened as memories flooded back to him. He jolted upright, his arms wrapping around his mother in a tight embrace. "Mom," he cried, his voice filled with relief and emotion. "You're okay." Kushina held him close, her tears flowing freely. "Yes, it's me," she replied, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm okay, sweetie, mommy is okay." After a long embrace, Kaito finally pulled away, his tears drying but leaving a melancholic glint in his eyes. "How long was I out for?" he asked, wiping away the last remnants of moisture. Hiruzen's voice, grave and somber, answered, "It has been 2 weeks." The weight of those words hit Kaito like a physical blow. 2 weeks. 2 weeks since the attack, 2 weeks since his father's death. The word wouldn't form on his lips, but the pain of it choked him, bringing tears to his eyes once more. He mumbled, "Dad," his voice a broken whisper as he looked down at the floor, unable to face the grief that threatened to consume him. Seeing his distress, Kushina immediately pulled him into another tight hug, her free arm wrapping around him like a protective shield. They held each other for what felt like an eternity, their silent grief finding solace in the warmth of their embrace. Suddenly, a soft gurgle broke the silence. Both Kaito and Kushina looked down to see Naruto, his tiny hands reaching out towards them. "Naruto," Kaito said, his voice still laced with sadness but now tinged with a hint of curiosity. Kushina smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Yes, Naruto. He's your baby brother and he's been waiting for you to wake up." A soft smile touched Kaito's lips as he looked at the innocent face of his younger brother. "Hey, there, little guy," he whispered, gently reaching out and stroking Naruto's cheek. Having received the answers he sought, Hiruzen stood up and said, "Well, I better be off then. It was good to see you both awake and well." He started towards the door, ready to leave the family to their private moment. But before he could leave, Kushina stopped him. "Lord Third," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "When is the funeral?" Hiruzen's heart ached for her. He knew the pain of losing someone close, and he couldn't imagine what she must be feeling. He paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts before speaking. "I'm sorry, Kushina," he said gently, "but it was a week ago." The words hung heavy in the air. Hearing that she had missed her husband's funeral, a wave of grief washed over Kushina. Tears streamed down her face as she held her sons close, seeking comfort in their presence. Kaito, understanding his mother's pain, wrapped his arm around her, offering silent support. He too was grieving, but he knew he had to be strong for his mother and his brother. Naruto, oblivious to the sorrow surrounding him, gurgled happily in his mother's arms, adding a touch of innocence to the scene. Hiruzen remained standing there for a moment, his gaze filled with sympathy. He knew that words wouldn't ease their pain, but he wanted them to know that he was there for them. "If there's anything you need," he said softly, "please do not hesitate to ask." With a small nod, Kushina thanked him. Hiruzen then turned and left the room, leaving the family alone with their grief. In the quiet of the hospital room, the family mourned their loss. Each member carried the pain in their own way, but they found solace in the comfort of each other. Several days had elapsed since both Kushina and Kaito emerged from their comatose states, and at last they were deemed healthy enough to depart from the hospital. During this time, they received a handful of visitors, including Makoto and her sons Itachi, Uchiha, along with baby Sasuke. Though the visits were brief, they were pleasant, providing a small reprieve. Hiruzen also paid a visit to convey the unfortunate news of their house being destroyed in the Ninetales attack. Their belongings had been relocated to the Uzumaki residence where Kushina had spent her formative years. With a final checkup from the doctor, Kushina and Kaito bid farewell to the hospital. Their destination, the Konoha Cemetery. The crisp autumn air outside carried a chill as Kushina, cradling baby Naruto, and Kaito walked towards the solemn grounds. At the cemetery, Minato Namikaze's gravestone, positioned at the forefront with the other Hokage, awaited them. Incense and flowers adorned it. Kaito, his expression reflecting a mix of sorrow, knelt beside the gravestone. Kushina, lowering herself onto one knee, held Naruto close as he fidgeted in her arms. "Minato, my love," Kushina whispered, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Thank you for your love, your protection, and your sacrifice. We will never forget you." Sensing the gravity of the moment, Naruto stilled in his mother's arms, his wide eyes absorbing the scene before him. Kaito's voice, though steady, trembled with emotion as he spoke to the gravestone. "Hey, Dad," he said, his eyes closed as if in prayer. "I'll protect them. Promise." For the past few days Kaido had been consumed by guilt and regret. He blamed himself for not being strong enough, for not being able to save Minato. The constant what-if scenarios tormented him, driving him to the brink of despair. Kushina, sensing his turmoil, had offered him comfort and support. Her words of reassurance and love were a balm to his wounded soul. But the pain remained a constant reminder of his loss. After a period of silent reflection and shared tears at the gravesite, Kushina decided it was time to head home. It's getting late. We should head home, she suggested, rising though stumbling slightly due to the pain emanating from her abdomen. Witnessing her discomfort, Kaido swiftly took Naruto from her arms and asked, "Are you okay, Mom?" Kushina managed a weak smile. "Yeah, just need a minute," she said, biting her lip to hold back the tears of pain. For the past few days, she had been experiencing random stabbing pains in her abdomen. It was likely due to the damage inflicted on her chakra coils during the Ninetales attack. After a short break, Kushina felt better, and the two of them continued on their journey home. They stopped at a market and picked up a few bags of groceries, ensuring they had enough to start fresh in their new home. Finally, they reached the Uzumaki residence located near the Senju compound. Unlike their previous home, this one had a more traditional feel with sprawling gardens and a spacious interior. While it lacked the familiar comfort of their old house, it held the promise of new beginnings. Stepping inside, Kushina surveyed the rooms, her eyes filled with determination. "This might not be the same as our old house," she said, her voice firm, "but we'll make it work together." She took Naruto with her, exploring the house and showing him his new surroundings. The baby, oblivious to the changes around him, gurgled happily, his innocent eyes radiating pure joy. Meanwhile, Kaido stood outside, his gaze fixed on a specific direction. He had sensed the presence of Kakashi among the Umbu, watching over them during their stay in the hospital, and he knew they were still there, guarding them from the shadows. "Kakashi, I know you're there," he called out, his voice filled with resolve. "Please come out." Moments later, a figure emerged from the trees, his silver hair shimmering in the sunlight. It was Kakashi, disguised as a regular ninja. Kaido, with newfound determination, bowed his head deeply. "Please help me train," he pleaded. "I need to become stronger, I have to protect them." Kakashi looked into Kaido's eyes, seeing the burning desire within them. He knew the young boy had suffered a great loss, but he also saw the resilience and determination that mirrored his own. He nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "Meet me here at dawn, we start tomorrow." With that, his body flickered away. Kakashi looked into Kaido's eyes, seeing the burning desire within them. He knew the young boy had suffered a great loss, but he also saw the resilience and determination that mirrored his own. He nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "Meet me here at dawn, we start tomorrow." With that, his body flickered away. It was evening in the Hidden Leaf Village, specifically at the Senju compound training ground. Two distinct figures occupied the space. One towering individual with silver hair, his headband concealing his left eye, identified as Kakashi Hatake, the son of the renowned White Fang of the Hidden Leaf. The second figure was a youthful child no older than 6, boasting red, slightly spiky hair, and clad in a black t-shirt and pants. This was Kaido Uzumaki, the eldest son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Currently, the two engaged in their weekly sparring session. Given Kakashi's responsibilities in the Umbu, he could only allocate 1 or 2 days per week to assist Kaido in his training regimen. As the sun started to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, dust swirled around the training ground, a testament to the hours of intense sparring that had taken place. Kaido's sweat trickling down his brow blocked a punch from Kakashi, his muscles burning with exertion. A swift kick sent him flying through the air, but with a midair twist, he regained his balance and launched a kunai attack. The single kunai multiplied to 40 and surged towards Kakashi. The copy ninja, anticipating the move, leaped into the air, gracefully avoiding the hail of blades. They pelted the ground where he had stood moments before. Landing on his feet, Kaido sprung towards Kakashi, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks. The seasoned Jonin, however, remained unfazed, effortlessly dodging and deflecting each attack. The battle raged on for another hour, the two figures blurring into a dance of offense and defense under the twilight sky. Despite the exhaustion gnawing at his bones, Kaido refused to give up. His eyes held a fierce determination fueled by a burning desire to surpass his limits. Kakashi, recognizing the spark within the young Uzumaki, pushed him further, testing his skills and forcing him to adapt and evolve. Kakashi stood over Kaido, who struggled to his feet, panting heavily. "You lasted longer than the first time we did this," Kakashi acknowledged. "But that's enough for today." Kaido, exhausted but defiant, protested. "I can still keep going." Kakashi, his gaze fixed on the setting sun, countered. "It's already getting late, Kaido. That's enough for today." Yielding to the inevitable, Kaido collapsed onto the training ground, his chest heaving. Sweat bathed his face as he stared at the darkening sky. Kakashi approached, extending a water bottle and offering a critique. "You've shown tremendous improvement in a short time," he began, "but your ninjutsu still requires further development. While you've mastered the techniques you know, eliminating the need for hand seals, you lack versatility in your arsenal." "You've improved," Kaido. Kakashi acknowledged, a rare smile gracing his lips. "But remember, the path of a ninja is long and arduous. Never lose sight of your goal and always strive to become stronger. After catching their breath, Kakashi rummaged through his pouch and pulled out a piece of paper, turning to Kaido. What do you know about chakra nature? He inquired. Kaido replied, I know there are 5 earth, water, wind, fire, and lightning. Kakashi handed him the paper, a chakra litmus paper. Yes, there are 5 basic natures and everyone has an affinity towards one of them, he explained. In some rare cases, even 2. But those are rare and usually only occur with someone who possesses an elemental Kekkai Genkai like lava release. This advanced nature is a combination of both fire and earth at a specific ratio. So even if you have both fire and earth elements, you wouldn't be able to use lava release. He continued, there are also yin and yang chakra. Yin is more towards the mind and medical ninjutsu. For example, the Yamanaka clan uses yin chakra for their mind techniques. As for yang, it's more physical like the Akimichi clan and their expansion jutsus, which are heavily yang-based. Pointing to the litmus paper, Kakashi explained, this is a chakra litmus paper. It's made from a tree that's sensitive to chakra. When you add chakra to it, it reacts differently based on your element. It will crumple if your chakra is lightning, burn if it's fire, split in 2 if it's wind, soak up the water if it's water, and turn to dust if it's earth. Kakashi held the chakra litmus paper between his fingers, focusing his chakra into it. The paper crumpled instantly. My primary affinity is lightning, Kakashi explained, demonstrating the effect. As you can see, when I channel my chakra into the paper, it crumples. Next, he concentrated on his earth nature, channeling chakra into the paper once again. This time, the paper disintegrated into dust. And my secondary affinity is earth, Kakashi added, showing the result. Turning to dust after being exposed to my chakra confirms that. He looked at Kaido. Having a certain affinity doesn't mean you can only learn jutsu of that element, he explained. It just means you'll have an easier time learning and mastering those techniques compared to others. Now why don't you give it a try? Kaido looked at the chakra litmus paper that Kakashi had given him earlier and channeled his chakra into it. He held his breath as the paper started to react. Unlike Kakashi's, Kaido's paper underwent a remarkable transformation. It began to dampen, soaking the paper while simultaneously splitting in 2 and slightly crinkling at the edges. Kaido stared at the paper in disbelief. I have 3 elements, he asked Kakashi, his voice filled with excitement. Kakashi, unsurprised but impressed, nodded. It's rare but not unheard of. Even Minato Sensei had 3 affinities, fire, lightning, and wind. So which element do you want to learn first? Kakashi asked. Kaido considered his options for a moment, then replied, water. It is both offensive and defensive, while wind and lightning are more offensive. Kakashi nodded in agreement. Good choice. Water is indeed very versatile. While I haven't personally learned water nature transformation myself, I know the first step. He pulled out another piece of paper from his pouch and handed it to Kaido. The first step is to convert your chakra into water and soak this paper completely, he explained. The faster you can saturate the paper, the faster you can convert your chakra to water. Kakashi looked up at the darkening sky. Work on that, Kaido. If you can master it by next week, it'll teach you a Suetun jutsu. With that, Kakashi turned and walked away, leaving Kaido alone in the training ground. As Kaido walked home after his training session with Kakashi, his mind drifted back to the past few months. The past 2 months since the attack had been incredibly difficult. He remembered the first day back home after being discharged from the hospital. His mother had tried to act normal, but he could see the cracks in her facade. After a forced dinner, they had gone to bed. As Kushina tucked him in, she had put on a brave face, but he knew she was hurting. Once darkness fell, sleep eluded him. His mind was plagued with what-ifs. He had thought that if he had blocked Obito's attack, that would have been enough to save both his parents. His naivete in that moment was painful to recall. It almost felt like it was fated for Naruto to have Kurama sealed within him. He thought, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. If everything is predetermined, then what's the point of me being reborn in this world? Tears welled up in his eyes as he stared at the ceiling. Then he heard a sob from outside his door. He knew who it was. Mom, he whispered. Kushina had held herself together in front of him, even in the hospital, but now she was breaking down. He shook his head, forcing away his despair. No, I can't think like that, he declared, his voice filled with newfound determination. Mom is alive. Because of me. I can change things. This is my story, and it won't end like that. Just you wait, Obito Zetsu, I will kill you, I swear. Unable to bear the sound of his mother's sobs any longer, Kaito rose from his bed and walked towards the source of the sound. He followed the muffled crying until he found Kushina sitting on the porch, tears streaming down her face. The sight of his mother crying shattered him. This was the first time he had ever seen her break down, and it was a sight he couldn't bear to witness. He slowly approached her and wrapped his arms around her in a gentle hug. Mom, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Kushina hastily wiped away her tears and forced a smile. Kaito-kun, did you have trouble sleeping too? She asked, her voice trembling. He simply nodded, unable to speak the words that were trapped in his throat. He clung to her tightly, finding solace in her embrace. Kushina returned his hug, and for a moment they held each other, their shared sorrow creating a powerful bond. As he held his mother, Kaito felt a surge of determination wash over him. He looked up at the moon, its light bathing them in a soft glow, and a vow formed on his lips. It'll make you regret the day you were born, Obito. And you too, Zetsu. That's a promise, he thought, his eyes hardening with resolve. That day marked a turning point in Kaido's life. It was the first time he had seen his mother cry, and it ignited a fire of vengeance within him. He swore he would make Obito and Zetsu pay for their actions no matter the cost. However, his mother's pain had become a constant source of worry. Her injuries from the attack were severe, and the Kanehagakure hospital had reached the limit of their medical capabilities. There was no known treatment for her condition. Desperate to find a solution, Kaido offered to let her bite him, hoping his healing ability would completely restore her health. But Kushina refused, fearing the potential consequences. You should only use that ability in emergencies, you hear me, and don't tell anyone about it, she said, her voice firm. You have already done more than anyone could have asked for, baby. You gave me a part of your life force, and we don't know how that will affect you, but Mom, I'm sure I can give you a few more years for mine, Kaido insisted. He was met with a firm rebuke and a gentle bonk on the head. I am happy with my life as it is, Kushina said, and it's only because of you that I survived in the first place. You have done enough. Despite his mother's words, Kaido knew he couldn't just sit back and watch her suffer. He was determined to find a way to help her, even if it meant pushing the boundaries of his abilities and venturing into the unknown. The day after being discharged from the hospital, Kaido returned to training, this time under Kakashi. The first question his Jonin mentor asked was simple yet profound. What is your motive? Kaido didn't hesitate. He didn't hide his anger and thirst for vengeance. I want to find that masked man and make him pay, he declared. I want revenge on that bastard. But what I want the most is to be able to protect what I have left. I don't want to feel helpless like that day ever again. His voice trembled as he spoke, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and desperation. He yearned to protect his mother and brother, to ensure their safety above all else. He continued, his voice laced with conviction. The masked man isn't dead, Kakashi. He escaped before Dad could kill him. Hell come after them. Dad sealed the Nine Tails in Naruto. Hell go after Naruto. I want to be able to protect them. I don't want to be like the last time I couldn't do anything. His body shook with frustration, the memory of his helplessness during the attack still raw and painful. Kakashi listened intently, his gaze unwavering. He placed a hand on Kaido's shoulder, his voice calm and reassuring. All right, he said, come at me with everything you've got. You'll need to assess your strength before we start. Underneath his calm exterior, Kakashi recognized the burning fire within Kaido. He understood the boy's pain and anger, and he knew that channeling those emotions into training would be crucial for his development. The sparring session that followed was intense. Kaido unleashed his fury with every punch and kick, his frustration fueling his movements. Kakashi pushed him to his limits, testing his skills and endurance. Kakashi watched Kaido catch his breath, impressed by the young boy's determination and skill. You're a lot better than I was at your age, he admitted, his voice a rare compliment. I'd put you at high genin level, bordering on low chunin. Kaido's eyes widened in surprise. Really, he exclaimed, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. Kakashi nodded. Really? You have potential, Kaido, but don't let it fill your head with notions of invincibility. There will always be someone stronger, someone faster, someone smarter. Remember that. Kaido knew Kakashi was right. He had seen enough of the world to understand that arrogance was a dangerous path. He appreciated Kakashi's honesty and the way he pushed him without ever taking it easy on him because of his age or his father's legacy. After their sparring session, Kaido approached Kakashi with a specific request. Kakashi, could you teach me the Kagebunshin no Jutsu? He asked, his voice filled with eagerness. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Why do you want to learn that jutsu? He inquired, curious about Kaido's motives. Kaido explained, I want to help Mom with the house chores, especially with her recent pains. This way I learn and simultaneously help her out. Kakashi understood. Kushina's injuries from the attack were taking their toll, and Kaido wanted to ease her burden. He nodded. Very well, he said, I will teach you the Kagebunshin no Jutsu. The technique demanded a large chakra reserve, but Kakashi knew that Kaido, being a Uzumaki, possessed a naturally large chakra reserve. To Kakashi's surprise, Kaido picked up the Kagebunshin no Jutsu with remarkable ease. His large chakra reserves and his natural talent for chakra control allowed him to perform the technique flawlessly on his first attempt. Kaido discovered that his limit was 10 clones before his chakra began to deplete, causing fatigue. Nevertheless, he was ecstatic with his progress and eager to put his clones to good use. After a 20-minute walk, Kaido arrived home. He stepped inside and called out, Mom, I'm back in the kitchen, honey, Kushina's voice replied. Kaido entered the kitchen and found a clone of himself diligently assisting his mother with dinner preparations while another played with Naruto in the corner. Kushina turned and smiled at her son. Welcome back, honey. Go take a bath and he'll have dinner ready soon. Hi, Kaido replied, feeling a surge of warmth from his mother's smile. He went to take a bath, and when he returned, another clone was setting the table. Kaido dispelled the clone, absorbing its memories and taking over the task. As he arranged the plates and utensils, Kaido felt a sense of satisfaction. He was not only training to become a powerful ninja but also contributing to his family's well-being. The Kagebunshin no Jutsu had proven to be a valuable tool, allowing him to help his mother and take care of his responsibilities while simultaneously learning and growing. Kaido looked at his mother, her face filled with love and gratitude. He knew that protecting her and his brother was his top priority, and he was determined to become strong enough to fulfill that promise. Dinner was a lively affair. Kaido's clone entertained baby Naruto with playful antics, keeping him giggling and happy. As they ate, Kushina inquired about his training. "How was training, honey?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "The same as usual," Kaido replied, taking a bite of his food. "We sparred, and then Kakashi taught me about chakra nature transformation." Kushina raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Chakra nature transformation? Already? You're still young to be learning that. Did you do the chakra litmus test?" Kaido nodded, a proud smile on his face. "Yes, and it turns out I have 3 nature transformations." Kushia's eyes widened in astonishment. 3 chakra natures? It's rare for someone to be born with 2, let alone 3. What did the test show? Kaido explained. "The paper got wet first, then it split in 2 and crinkled a bit." Kushina pondered this for a moment. You definitely got water from me, since my primary affinity is water. And you got the lightning from your father Minato, whose primary affinity was also lightning. And you got wind from both of us. Both your father and I had wind as our secondary nature affinity. So which element are you going to learn first? Kaido nodded, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Water, since it's my primary affinity. And Kakashi gave me the exercise for the first step." Kushina grinned. "The chakra conversion exercise, it can be quite difficult, but I can give you some pointers. After all, I am a master of water release ninjutsu." Dinner continued with animated conversation filled with laughter and stories. As the night deepened, the family retired for the day, their hearts filled with love and warmth. Kushina grinned. "The chakra conversion exercise, it can be quite difficult, but I can give you some pointers. After all, I am a master of water release ninjutsu." Dinner continued with animated conversation filled with laughter and stories. As the night deepened, the family retired for the day, their hearts filled with love and warmth. The sun rose high on April 1st, casting its warm glow over Konohagakure. 6 months had passed since the devastating Ninetales attack, and the village was slowly but surely healing. While there were still signs of the destruction, the ongoing construction projects, the lingering grief, Konoha was on the mend both physically and economically. The streets were once again bustling with life. Merchants hawked their wares, children played in the sun, and a sense of normalcy slowly returned. Amidst the activity, a trio walked purposefully toward the base of the Hokage monument. Leading the way was a woman with fiery red hair cascading down her back like molten lava. She wore a vibrant green and red dress, its hues echoing the rising sun. In her arms, she cradled a baby with wispy blonde hair, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. This was Kushina Uzumaki, the red-hot habanero, and her infant son Naruto. Walking beside them was a young boy no older than 5 or 6 years old. He wore a simple black outfit accented by a white long-sleeve jacket. On the back, emblazoned proudly, was the Uzumaki clan symbol, a swirling spiral representing their indomitable spirit. A smaller version of the symbol adorned the right sleeve just above the cuff. This was Kaido Uzumaki, Kushina's eldest son and Naruto's older brother. "Mom, are you sure you're okay?" Kaido asked, concern etched on his face as he looked at his mother. "I can go to the academy on my own. You don't have to strain yourself, you know." Kushina smiled at him, her fiery hair flowing down her back like molten lava. "I'm fine, Kaido-kun," she assured him, her voice gentle. "Besides, we wouldn't want to miss your first day at the academy, would we?" She cooed at the giggling infant in her arms, Naruto. Kaido sighed, unable to resist his mother's infectious optimism. All right, but he'll leave a shadow clone hidden just in case," he mumbled, his eyes lingering on Kushina's face. He had noticed her increasingly frequent abdominal pains, and each episode gnawed at his heart. He didn't want her to push herself, not on his account. Kushina ruffled his hair playfully. "You worry too much, Kaido-kun," she teased. Together, they continued their walk towards the Konoha Ninja Academy. The air buzzed with excitement as aspiring young shinobi, their faces flushed with hope and anticipation, streamed towards the imposing building. Kaido, on the cusp of turning 6, was finally old enough to join their ranks. He was the eldest son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, and he was determined to make his parents proud. A short while later, Kushina and Kaido arrived at the bustling Konoha Ninja Academy. Nestled near the base of the Hokage monument and within close proximity to the Hokage office, the academy buzzed with the energy of 1,000 potential shinobi. As they approached, they were met with a sea of hopeful faces, parents and other family members. "Wow, there are so many kids joining this year," Kushina exclaimed, her eyes scanning the eager crowd. "Come on, Kaido, let's get you registered." She took his hand and led him towards a chunin overseeing the registration process. After completing the necessary paperwork, Kaido and his mother were directed towards the academy's training grounds located behind the main building. As Kushina and Kaido entered the bustling training ground, they were greeted by a sea of aspiring young ninja and their families. Parents chatted excitedly, children bounced with nervous energy, and the air crackled with anticipation. Kaido's eyes scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces. He spotted one of his best friends, Itachi Uchiha, standing with his parents Makoto and Fugaku. A smile spread across Kaido's face as he led his mother towards them. "It's good to see you," Makoto Fugakusama Kushina greeted warmly, her fiery hair flowing around her shoulders. "And you too, Itachi-kun." Kaido bowed respectfully. "Fugakusama, Lady Makoto," he greeted. Makoto smiled back, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Akushina, Kaido-kun. How have you been?" While the adults chatted, Kaido turned his attention to his friend. "Yo, Itachi," he said, a mischievous grin playing on his lips. "It's been a while. How have you been?" Itachi, calm and composed as ever, nodded. "Hi, Kaido. It has been a few months." Kaido's grin widened. "So what have you been up to? I hope you've kept up with your training," he challenged, his eyes sparkling with playful competitiveness. "Our sparring record still stands at 20-15 in my favor." Itachi's brow furrowed slightly. "It won't be that way for long," he retorted, a hint of determination in his voice. Kaido hadn't had much time to interact with his friends in the past 6 months. His days were filled with intense training sessions under Kakashi's watchful eye, tending to household chores and caring for his infant brother Naruto, while Kushina's recurring abdominal pains prevented her from doing too much. While engrossed in conversation with Itachi, Kaido caught a glimpse of a blur rushing towards him. Before he could react, he was tackled by a midnight blue-haired whirlwind. "Oof!" Kaido exclaimed, momentarily stunned by the sudden assault. It was Hataru Hyuga, another one of his close friends. She quickly disentangled herself from him, her chest heaving with exertion. "It's good to see you too, Hotarukan," Kaido chuckled despite being slightly disoriented. Hataru, her lavender eyes gleaming with a mixture of relief and annoyance, punched him playfully on the arm. "Huff, do you know how worried I was?" Yubaka. Kaido scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry, he replied with a sheepish smile. He had completely forgotten about Hataru. The guilt and self-loathing he felt after the Ninetales attack, coupled with his rigorous training and constant worry for his mother's health, had consumed his thoughts. Seeing Hataru alive and well, however, filled him with immense relief. "How have you been? Are you okay?" Hataru asked, her concern evident in her voice. Kaido managed a reassuring smile. "I'm doing fine, thank you for asking." He was grateful for her concern. The reunion was interrupted by the arrival of Hayashi and his wife Hataru's parents. They greeted Kushina and Kaido warmly. "All right," Kaido said, remembering his manners. He gestured towards Itachi. "By the way, this is Itachi Uchiha." He then turned to Itachi and said, "And this is Hataru Hyuga." Hataru bowed slightly. "It's nice to meet you, Itachi-san." Itachi nodded politely. "It's nice to meet you as well." From the corner of his eye, Kaido caught his mother grinning mischievously. She seemed to be enjoying the interaction between him and Hataru, which made him roll his eyes playfully. He knew she was probably hoping for something to blossom between them, but Kaido was too focused on his training and his family to think about romance right now. Just as they were about to continue talking, a Chunin instructor announced the academy orientation is about to begin. "All students please line up in front of the podium, no more than 7 in a line. And parents please move to the back. Thank you." Hearing that, Kushina turned towards Kaido and his friends with a huge smile and said, "Good luck, you guys." Their parents echoed her sentiments before moving towards the back. With that, Kaido and his friends moved towards the podium and lined up. While standing in the line, Kaido looked around and said, "There are 84 in my batch." Shortly after that, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, made his way towards the podium. As the leader of Konohagakure and a respected shinobi, his presence commanded immediate silence from the children. Standing tall on the podium, the third Hokage addressed the gathered children, his voice echoing across the crowd. "Congratulations on your acceptance into the academy, everyone," he announced, a proud smile spreading across his face. "From this day forth, I urge you to dedicate yourselves to your training, striving towards your goal of becoming a shinobi." Kaido, however, just rolled his eyes at Hiruzen's seemingly endless brainwashing speech. Once the Hokage's address concluded, the students were ushered towards their respective classrooms. Kaido, along with his friends Itachi and Hataru, found themselves assigned to Class 1A. This class, consisting of 21 students, was a diverse mix of clan children and a few civilians. As they entered the classroom, a girl with long brown hair and a purple shirt approached Itachi. "Itachi here," she called out. Kaido recognized her instantly. Izumi, Itachi's love interest. Itachi walked over and greeted her. "Hi, Izumi. This is Kaido and Hataru," he said, introducing his friends. "And this," he added with a smile, "is Izumi Uchiha." Both Hataru and Kaido offered their greetings. Just then, an instructor entered the classroom. "All right, everyone, please take your seats." The students settled down, Itachi choosing to sit beside Izumi, a row ahead of Kaido and Hataru, who sat together in the row behind them. The instructor began checking attendance. As he read through the list, he called out Hana Inuzuka. Kaido recognized the name instantly. Kiba, Inuzuka's older sister. "So she's the same age as us," he thought with a flicker of surprise. Following the attendance check, the instructor cleared his throat and addressed the students. "My name is Taji Hiriko," he stated, "and I will be your homeroom instructor for the foreseeable future." He paused, allowing the information to settle before continuing. I'm sure some of you have already been taught ninjutsu within your families, but here at the Academy we not only focus on individual skills, but also on teamwork and collaboration. It's crucial to master the fundamentals, so please pay close attention and dedicate yourselves to your training. With that, Hiriko proceeded to outline some of the classroom rules and expectations. Once finished, he declared, "Now then, everyone, let's head down to the training grounds to assess your skill levels." He then ushered the students out of the classroom and back onto the training field. As the students and instructor made their way to the training grounds, parents lingered nearby, eager to witness their children's first steps in their shinobi journey. Kaido spotted his mother Kushina holding baby Naruto among them and offered a friendly wave, which she returned with a warm smile. Upon reaching the training grounds, the instructor announced the day's training schedule. "Alright class," he declared, "well, begin with the obstacle course followed by shurikenjutsu and taijutsu." A competitive spark ignited within Kaido. He turned to Itachi, a smirk playing on his lips, and challenged, "Loser buys lunch for the winner." Itachi, ever composed, simply nodded in agreement. "Hi," he replied. The students were led to a challenging obstacle course. The instructor explained, "When I blow the whistle, run through the course as fast as you can. Class 1A, you're up first." With a sharp whistle, the race began. Kaido and Itachi burst forward, leading the pack. "See you at the finish line," Kaido quipped to Itachi, pushing his speed further. He navigated the obstacles with practiced ease, reaching the finish line first. Close behind him were Itachi and Hataru, who claimed third place. Kaido, holding back to avoid overwhelming Itachi, couldn't help but grin victoriously. "One win for me," he declared, earning a slightly winded smile from Itachi. He then turned to Hataru, who was catching her breath, and offered a supportive, "You did well, Hataru." Hataru nodded, her chest rising and falling with exertion. From the crowd, Kushina's enthusiastic voice rang out, "That's my boy," causing Kaido to blush and sheepishly scratch the back of his head. As the other classes completed the obstacle course, the instructor motioned them towards the target area. They were then called up a few at a time for the shuriken throwing test. Kaido stood with Hataru, Itachi, and Izumi patiently waiting their turn. A smug kid standing beside Itachi threw his kunai, landing 4 inside the target and 5 outside. "Ha, beat that," he declared, directing his challenge at both Itachi and Kaido. Unfazed, both Itachi and Kaido threw their kunai simultaneously, hitting the center of the target with perfect accuracy. Hataru, demonstrating exceptional skill, landed 9 kunai inside the black target and only 1 outside. Izumi, while not quite as precise, still managed to land 5 kunai within the target, with 5 falling outside. The kid who had challenged Itachi earlier stared at both Kaido and Itachi with a dumbfounded expression. "What's with him?" Kaido inquired, glancing at the kid Kamano, if he recalled correctly. Itachi simply offered a shrug in response. "How, well, whatever. That's a draw," Kaido declared, to which Itachi nodded in agreement. The results of the shuriken test were finally announced, revealing that both Itachi and Kaido had secured the top spot, while Hataru earned a well-deserved second place. The instructor gathered everyone and announced, "All right, when I call your names, come forward and perform the seal of reconciliation. Begin when I say Hajime." He proceeded to call out the names one by one. While others paid attention, Kaido ignored them and engaged in conversation with Hataru. This continued until his ears perked up when he heard her name called alongside Hana Inuzuka. "Good luck," Kaido offered to Hataru as she confidently strides towards the center. "I don't need luck," Hataru replied with a smirk, her expression brimming with smug confidence. Hataru and Hana both performed the seal of reconciliation. As soon as the instructor Taji called out Hajime and retreated, the fight began. It was brief yet impressive. Hana rushed towards Hataru, unleashing a flurry of punches, but Hataru displayed incredible agility, dodging each blow effortlessly. With lightning-fast reflexes, Hataru countered with a single palm strike, sending Hana crashing to the ground unconscious. "She's strong," remarked Itachi, impressed by Hataru's display of skill. Kaido hummed in agreement, nodding. To himself, he thought she didn't even use the Byakugan. She might be as strong as Itachi right now. As Hataru returned, Kaido greeted her with a smile, praising her performance. "You did well." As the instructor opened his mouth to announce the next pair, Kaido's hand shot up, interrupting him. "Sensei," Kaido declared, his gaze fixed on Itachi. "I would like to fight." Itachi. The instructor, surprised by the unexpected request, looked to Itachi for confirmation. After a brief pause, Itachi offered a slight nod, accepting the challenge. "Very well," the instructor conceded, gesturing for them to step forward. Once they stood facing each other, Kaido turned to the instructor. "Sensei, may we use ninjutsu?" The instructor, aware of Kaido's lineage as the son of the 4th Hokage, hesitated for a moment. He then glanced toward the Hokage, who had been observing the exchange. The Hokage, sensing the potential for a remarkable demonstration, gave a firm nod of approval. With a sigh of understanding, the instructor finally relented. "All right, you may proceed." Both Kaido and Itachi acknowledged this with a determined nod. They faced each other, their expressions resolute, holding the seal of confrontation. Kaido, his eyes focused on Itachi's, declared, "Let's go all out, Itachi." Itachi, meeting his gaze, responded with a silent nod. As the tension crackled between them, the instructor called out Hajime and swiftly retreated, leaving Kaido and Itachi to face each other in what promised to be an epic clash. At the instructor's signal, both Kaido and Itachi launched into action, colliding in a flurry of punches and kicks. The exchange was a whirlwind of motion, each blocking and countering the other's blows with lightning reflexes. Kaido, impressed by Itachi's ability to keep up with him, grinned. "Let's step this up a notch," he declared, increasing his speed dramatically. Itachi found himself struggling to keep pace. Recognizing the shift in momentum, he broke off the exchange and leaped back, creating some distance between them. Anticipating Itachi's attempt to create space, Kaido hurled a kunai towards him. But in a display of advanced skills, the single kunai multiplied into 10 midair, raining down on Itachi as he landed. From the sidelines, Kushina couldn't contain her excitement, cheering loudly for Kaido, as Makoto silently cheered for her son. Fugaku, however, observed the exchange with a frown. "Itachi is struggling to keep up with that kid," he muttered. He narrowed his eyes further when Kaido effortlessly performed a sealless shuriken kage bunshin. Across the field, the third Hokage watched the spar with keen interest. Puffing thoughtfully on his pipe, he mused, "Sealess shuriken kage bunshin, at his age, that boy has immense potential." Itachi, with swift reflexes, deflected several of the kunai with his own. He then leaped into the air, narrowly avoiding the rest of the deadly projectiles. However, Kaido, anticipating Itachi's next move, had already appeared in front of him. "That all you got, Itachi?" Kaido taunted, launching a powerful kick aimed at his opponent. Itachi crossed his arms in an attempt to block the attack, but the sheer force sent him flying towards the ground. With a quick roll, he managed to regain his footing, but before he could regain his balance, Kaido was upon him again. They engaged in a fierce exchange of punches and kicks, the air crackling with their raw energy. Itachi, for the first time, found himself struggling to keep up with Kaido's relentless assault. "He's gotten faster, I can't keep up," he thought, his mind racing to find a counter. Suddenly, as if a switch had flipped, Itachi started anticipating Kaido's movements, reading his punches and kicks before they landed. With this newfound awareness, he landed a clean counterpunch, catching Kaido off guard and sending him stumbling backward. Seizing the opportunity, Itachi launched into a relentless offensive, forcing Kaido to defend himself desperately. But Kaido was not ready to give up. He matched Itachi's intensity blow for blow, their movements mirroring each other in a breathtaking display of skill. Just as the battle seemed to reach a stalemate, Itachi grasped Kaido's hand, using it to swiftly form a series of hand seals: snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Then, using Kaido's own leg as a springboard, he launched himself into the air and shouted, "Kitan Gokakyu." No jutsu, a massive fireball erupted from his mouth, hurtling towards Kaido like a fiery dragon. Kaido, watching the fireball approach, smirked and quickly formed his own hand sign. "Suetun Mizurappa," he cried, spewing a powerful jet of water that met the fireball heat. The two forces collided in a spectacular explosion, engulfing the arena in a thick cloud of mist. Both Kaido and Itachi charged forward, their forms obscured by the swirling fog. Just as they were about to collide, a figure materialized between them, catching their wrists with astonishing speed. As the mist swirled around them, the figure who had intervened came into focus. To everyone's surprise, it was none other than Fugaku, Uchiha Itachi's father. "Your spar has gotten out of hand," Fugaku stated, firmly releasing their wrists. Kaido sheepishly scratched his head. "My bad, Fugakusama," he mumbled. "We got caught in the moment." Itachi echoed the sentiment with a slight bow. "Sorry, father." Kaido turned to Itachi, a mischievous smirk playing on his lips. "And congratulations on awakening your Sharingan, Itachi," he declared, forming the seal of reconciliation. Itachi froze in shock. "Have I awakened it?" he wondered, tentatively reaching up to touch his face. Fugaku cleared his throat, drawing Itachi's attention back to him. With a nod, Itachi mimicked the seal of reconciliation, acknowledging Kaido's statement. Fugaku watched them with a calculating gaze. He pushed Itachi on purpose, he thought to himself, and he was still holding back. The instructor, finally emerging from his stupor, announced, "All right, on to the next fight." He resumed his duties, overseeing the remaining spars. Itachi remained deep in thought, oblivious to Izumi's enthusiastic congratulations. Meanwhile, Kaido chatted animatedly with Hataru. The rest of the spars, though conducted with passion, failed to match the intensity of Kaido and Itachi's duel. As the day drew to a close, Kaido exchanged farewells with his friends and left with his mother, his mind still buzzing from the day's events. The awakening of the Sharingan marked a significant turning point in Itachi's life, and Kaido, the catalyst for this change, couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment and excitement for what the future held. Itachi remained deep in thought, oblivious to Izumi's enthusiastic congratulations. Meanwhile, Kaido chatted animatedly with Hataru. The rest of the spars, though conducted with passion, failed to match the intensity of Kaido and Itachi's duel. As the day drew to a close, Kaido exchanged farewells with his friends and left with his mother, his mind still buzzing from the day's events. The awakening of the Sharingan marked a significant turning point in Itachi's life, and Kaido, the catalyst for this change, couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment and excitement for what the future held. The sun peeked over the rooftops of Kanahegakure, painting the village hidden in the leaves with a warm glow. It was early morning, a time of quiet anticipation before the bustle of the day set in. At the Uzumaki residence, the familiar sounds of breakfast preparations filled the air. A gentle aroma of sizzling oil and savory spices wafted from the kitchen where Kushina, her fiery red hair pulled back in a loose braid, hummed cheerfully as she cooked. Kaido burst into the kitchen, a yawn stretching across his face. He rubbed his eyes and greeted his mother with a sleepy smile. "Good morning, Mom. What's for breakfast?" Kushina, her face radiant with maternal love, turned to her son. "Good morning, sweetheart," she replied. "Take a seat, I'm just finishing up the Tamagotchi." Kaido plopped down at the table, his eyes drawn to the tiny figure playing beside him. Baby Naruto, barely a year-old, giggled and cooed as he kicked his chubby legs and reached for a toy dangling within his grasp. "He's quite active this morning," Kaido remarked, gently tickling his little brother's tummy. Kushina chuckled, her eyes sparkling with affection. That's just Naruto-can waking up," she said, nuzzling Naruto's soft cheek. "He's always full of energy." With a practiced hand, Kushina dished up breakfast, filling Kaido's plate with fluffy rice miso soup and a generous serving of Tamagotchi. The scent of the perfectly cooked eggs, sweet and savory, made Kaido's stomach rumble in anticipation. As she finished serving, Kushina carefully picked Naruto up, settling him comfortably in her lap. With a gentle hand, she began to spoon-feed him the soft rice, her voice soft and soothing. "What are you going to do today, Mom?" Kaido asked between bites of his Tamagotchi. Kushina glanced up from feeding Naruto, her brow furrowed slightly. I need to head to the barrier division to check on a few things," she said. "Other than that, nothing much." Kaido hummed thoughtfully. "You'll have a shadow clone accompany you then?" he decided. Kushina sighed, her hand reaching up to ruffle her son's hair. "You don't have to do that, you know," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "I can handle myself just fine." But Kaido was already halfway through making his clone. "It's no trouble at all, Mom," he assured her. "Besides, you'll have someone to help with errands and keep you company." The clone, a perfect replica of Kaido, popped into existence and saluted him smartly. "Hi, boss," it declared, its voice a tad too loud for Kushina's taste. Smiling, Kushina handed Kaido his lunchbox. "Hey, race your lunch," she said, her voice warm. "I made chicken carriage with rice today." "Thanks, Mom," Kaido replied, pulling her into a quick hug. "I'm heading out to the academy now." "Have fun at school, sweetheart," Kushina whispered, hugging him back. With a wave and a grin, Kaido left the house, the familiar path to the academy stretching before him. But after walking a few blocks, he ducked into a secluded alleyway. There he created another shadow clone. "You know what to do," he said, handing the clone his school bag. The clone, a silent and serious copy, nodded curtly. "Hi," it muttered and melted back into the shadows, heading towards the academy in Kaido's place. Kaido, meanwhile, performed a quick transformation jutsu. In a puff, his appearance shifted, hiding his true identity. With a secret smile, he set off towards the training ground he and Kakashi frequented. Upon reaching the training ground, Kaido dispelled his transformation jutsu, declaring, "All right, let's get to work." It had been 3 months since he started his journey at the Ninja Academy, an experience that left him feeling unfulfilled. Kaido deemed the academy a considerable waste of time, prompting him to deploy a shadow clone to attend in his stead, the clone sharing its memories upon dispersion. Nevertheless, Kaido still made occasional appearances at the academy. Kaido started with physical training, pushing his body to its limits. And following that, he delved into dodging exercises. Kaido created 5 clones and instructed them to hurl balls at him while blindfolded, refraining from utilizing chakra to enhance his movements. Simultaneously, the clones were granted permission to utilize chakra. Kaido aimed to enhance his sensing and awareness, managing to endure the exercise for approximately an hour. As he lay on the ground panting and exhausted, one of the clones, holding a stopwatch, declared 1 hour and a half. Another clone handed him a water bottle, stating, "Here, that's a new record." Gratefully accepting the bottle, Kaido nodded. After a short rest, Kaido rose, determination etched on his face. "All right, you two," he pointed to 2 clones, "work on your taijutsu kata." "You," he gestured to another, "practice shuriken jutsu." "And finally, you," he turned to the last clone, "we are doing the 3rd water nature exercise." With a nod of agreement, Kaido's clones dispersed, each disappearing into a different corner of the training ground to tackle their assigned tasks. The sun now high in. The sky cast warm beams down on Kaido as he turned his attention to the 3rd stage of his water chakra nature mastery. He remembered the struggle of the first step. It had taken him a week, guided by his mother's patient instruction, to simply imbue the paper with his chakra and turn it damp. It was a delicate dance, requiring him to focus his chakra, coax it to flow, and then condense it into a precise form within the paper fibers. The hours spent hunched over the damp paper, sweat dripping from his brow, were a testament to his determination. Another month of painstaking practice followed. He repeated the exercise until the dampness appeared effortlessly, his chakra dancing to his will. He didn't resort to clones for this initial stage, knowing that true mastery required his undivided focus and unyielding effort. The first step, dampening paper with chakra, was a mere stepping stone compared to the behemoth that was the second, extracting water from a leaf. Even seasoned jonin struggled with this feat, demanding an almost impossible level of control and precision. It had taken Kaido, fueled by his mother's tutelage and a relentless shadow clone, a grueling 4.5 months to finally conquer it. Now, months later, Kaido and his clone sat huddled on the training ground, an empty cup resting between them. This was the final stage, the pinnacle of water-nature manipulation, filling that cup with water from the very air itself. Kaido knew the gravity of the task. Kushina had called it the peak of water mastery achieved by only a handful, even she herself succumbing to its difficulty after years of dedicated effort. The only success story she knew was the legendary second Hokage Tobirama Senju. Frustration gnawed at Kaido. An hour of focused effort had yielded nothing. He flung the empty cup onto the ground, its clatter echoing his own exasperation. Damn it, he roared. A month of trying and not even a single drop. His clone, ever pragmatic, offered a calming voice. What did you expect? Mom warned you this was the pinnacle of water-nature transformation. Even she gave up after years of trying. And the only other one she knows who mastered it was the second Hokage himself. Maybe we should move on to our lightning nature. Kaido sighed, his spirit momentarily dampened like his failed attempts. He knew the clone was right, but a shiver of fear ran down his spine. Madara, Kagaya, Ishiki. The names of these monstrous figures whispered in the shadows, harbingers of a future he desperately wanted to change. He had a plan, a grand strategy to rise to their level. With a resolute glint in his eyes, Kaido brushed away his despondency. No time for excuses, he declared, picking up the empty cup. Let's continue. We'll conquer this peak even if it takes us years. The sun dipped towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the training ground. Hours had melted away in a relentless pursuit of water mastery, and Kaido's body ached with the accumulated strain. He sensed his clone returning from the monotonous drudgery of the academy, a welcome distraction from his own frustrations. Looking up at the sky, Kaido estimated the time to be late afternoon, somewhere between 2 and 3 o'clock. He dismissed the rest of his clones one by one, their memories merging with his, bringing a wave of fatigue that washed over him like a tidal wave. The experiences of the day, the frustration of the third step, and the countless failed attempts all flooded back, a vivid sensory overload. Damn, Kaido muttered, collapsing onto the ground, catching his breath. And Naruto did that with 200 clones, he thought, a mix of disbelief and admiration swirling in his mind. His clone landed beside him, concern etched on its face. Any progress today? It asked, handing him the school bag. Kaido shook his head, the words caught in his throat. Sadly no, he admitted, dispelling the clone with a sigh. Then a smile graced his lip as he turned towards the direction the clone had come from. Kaido's voice echoed through the training ground, a playful challenge aimed at the hidden figure. I know you're there, he called out, his gaze fixed on a nearby tree. You can come out, you know. Hataru, the perceptive Hyuga, had figured out his little game. Hataru Hyuga, her face a mix of curiosity and apprehension, stood before him. Kaido greeted her with his usual cheer. So you figured out it wasn't the real me? How? She narrowed her eyes, a hint of hurt in her voice. The clone only had a quarter of your chakra, she observed. Kaido chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Busted, I guess. He knew he couldn't hide anything from Hataru's keen eyes. All right, he conceded. But why are you so curious about the clones anyway? Hataru hesitated for a moment, the hurt in her eyes deepening. Why have you been sending clones to the academy every day? She finally asked. Kaido's smile faltered. Not every day, he corrected sheepishly. More like every other day. He sighed, knowing he owed her the truth. Look, the academy, it doesn't hold much for me. I already know most of what they teach. And honestly, the fangirls are driving me crazy. He wasn't exaggerating. The display he and Itachi had put on during their first spar had turned them into overnight sensations. It only got worse when his lineage as the son of the late fourth Hokage became public knowledge. Lunch breaks were a nightmare filled with giggling girls and relentless autograph requests. He and Itachi usually sought refuge during lunch, Hataru often joining them for their secret escapes. It was in those moments of shared solitude that a genuine friendship blossomed between the three of them. Hataru listened patiently, a flicker of understanding softening her features. So you're sending clones to avoid the fuss and train in secret, she asked. Kaito nodded, a rueful grin spreading across his face. Pretty much. Besides, who wouldn't want an extra pair of hands for training, right? After hearing Kaito's explanation, Hataru immediately expressed her interest, saying, teach me. Kaito, taken aback, responded with a puzzled Hataru, her eyes sparkling with determination, elaborated. Teach me the shadow clone jutsu, she said. I too don't find much value in the academy's lessons, and I want to train with you. Her gaze locked onto his, her determination unwavering. A slow grin spread across Kaito's face. Gladly, he replied, his heart thrumming with excitement. The truth was, the only reason he endured the drudgery of the academy in person was to spend time with Hataru. Knowing that Itachi always sent clones to the academy, Kaito and Itachi would meet for sparring sessions whenever they skipped attending the academy. With Hataru's request, Kaito realized he no longer needed to go to the academy. Standing up, Kaito began to explain. The shadow clone technique is a forbidden jutsu. This technique allows the user to create one or more copies of themselves, and these are not illusory copies like the standard clone technique taught at the academy. It creates a physical copy by dividing your chakra in half. It's forbidden because it requires a large chakra reserve and good control. Hataru nodded, taking in his words. I understand, she said, her voice firm. But I'm a Hyuga. Our clan is known for our chakra control. Judging by your chakra levels, you can make 3 to 4 shadow clones, but I would recommend not making more than 3, advised Kaido, receiving another nod from Hataru. The setting sun cast long shadows across the training ground as Hataru finally managed to form a perfect shadow clone. After an hour of sweat, focus, and frustration, she had successfully replicated herself, the duplicate standing tall and unwavering beside her. You got the hang of it in under 1 hour, Kaido exclaimed, his practice-weary muscles groaning in protest. Not bad, for Hataru, panting, lightly nodded with a satisfied smile. Thanks, Kaido. I guess being a Hyuga has its perks. She dispelled the clone with a swirl of leaves, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. Looking up at the sky now ablaze with the fiery hues of dusk, Kaido announced, it's getting late. We should head home. Come on, I'll walk you. Hataru, a warm smile gracing her lips, agreed readily. Hi, she replied softly. The walk to the Hyuga compound was filled with easy conversation. They talked about trivial things, the weather, the academy's latest gossip, and their shared dream of surpassing the limitations set for them. Reaching the imposing gates of the Hyuga compound, Kaido stopped, his gaze lingering on Hataru's face. Meet me at the training ground tomorrow, he instructed. Hataru's eyes, bright with newfound purpose, met his. Hi, she replied, her voice firm. They'll be there. And with that, Kaido Uzumaki, a grin etched on his face, turned and hurried back home. Reaching the imposing gates of the Hyuga compound, Kaido stopped, his gaze lingering on Hataru's face. Meet me at the training ground tomorrow, he instructed. Hataru's eyes, bright with newfound purpose, met his. Hi, she replied, her voice firm. I'll be there. And with that, Kaido Uzumaki, a grin etched on his face, turned and hurried back home. The warm sun shone down on the peaceful village, hidden among the lush green leaves. 2 small figures, no older than 6 years old, made their way through the forest surrounding the village at a relaxed pace. One of them was a young boy with fiery red hair and bright blue eyes that seemed to sparkle in the sunlight. The other was a girl with strikingly white, pupilless eyes and dark blue, almost black hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall. These 2 were none other than Kaido Uzumaki and Hataru Hyuga, 2 children of powerful ninja clans. So where are we going? Kaido-kun asked Hataru, looking up at her companion with curiosity in her gaze. Kaido's smile widened as he replied, to a training ground near the Uchiha compound. We're going to be training with Itachi today. It had been a month since Hataru had joined Kaido in skipping the academy, and both of them had been tirelessly training together ever since. Kaido found having Hataru as his training partner incredibly helpful, especially with her exceptional skills in taijutsu. As a prodigy from the Hyuga clan, a clan solely focused on their own brand of taijutsu known as the Gentle Fist, Hataru's abilities were unmatched. She was able to provide Kaido with a real challenge during their sparring sessions. In fact, if Kaido were to rank her, he would place her just below Itachi in terms of skill when they both went all out in taijutsu. As they reached their usual training ground, they spotted Itachi waiting for them. Excitedly, Kaido shouted over to him with a grin, Yo, Itachi, you don't mind me bringing along Hataru, do you? Itachi turned his head towards them and replied calmly, Oh, Kaido, no, I don't mind at all. Hataru smiled politely and slightly bowed her head before saying, Good to see you again, Itachi-san. To which Itachi greeted her back with a small nod of his head. Kaido's piercing gaze met Itachi's as he posed the question, So, what do you want to start with? Itachi's confident voice responded, I wanted to practice my shuriken jutsu. He turned his attention to the wooden target in front of them, readying himself for the challenge. Kaido glanced at Hataru and she nodded in agreement. Well then, let's get started, Kaido said with determination. The 3 of them began their training in shuriken jutsu, each striving to be the best. As always, Kaido issued a challenge to Itachi and Hataru to determine who was the most skilled. As they trained, the sounds of kunai hitting the targets echoed through the clearing. Itachi's precise aim never failed to hit the center every time. Kaido grumbled under his breath, those Uchihas and their shuriken jutsu, so annoying. Hataru couldn't help but giggle at her friend's frustration. As noon approached, Itachi emerged as the victor in their friendly competition. Hataru and Kaido were tied for second place. With a small smile on his face, Itachi declared, I win. Kaido shrugged it off with a wave of his hand. Yeah, whatever. I'm hungry. Are you guys hungry? He asked while heading towards where they had left their belongings. Hi, Hataru replied and followed closely behind him. Itachi joined them. They settled onto a patch of grass, their legs stretched out in the warm sun. Kaido reached into his bag and pulled out a small scroll, carefully unsealing it to reveal a neatly packed lunch. Hataru and Itachi followed suit, pulling out their own lunches from their bags. Kaido opened his box with a satisfied hum, revealing a steaming bowl of ebi tempura donbori. What did you guys bring for lunch? He asked, glancing at his friend's meals. I brought katsudon, replied Hataru between bites. And I have onigiri, added Itachi, taking one out from his lunchbox. As they ate, the trio chatted and laughed, enjoying the peaceful moment. But Kaido couldn't help but notice that Itachi was quieter than usual. After they finished eating, Kaido turned to Itachi and asked, "What's on your mind?" Itachi looked up at him, seeming startled as he was about to continue training with shuriken jutsu. "Huh," he said. "You've been more quiet than usual," continued Kaido. "And every time you're like this, I know something is troubling you." Itachi let out a sigh and posed a deep question. "There is birth and there is death. Why does life flocks together? What is a shinobi? What is a village? Why is there fighting in life?" Hataru looked puzzled at the sudden change in topic, but Kaido understood where Itachi's thoughts were coming from. Why can't he have normal thoughts? Kaido thought to himself with a sigh before speaking up. "You sure don't ask easy questions, do you?" Kaido thought carefully before answering. "Well," began Kaido, rubbing his chin in contemplation, "birth and death are natural processes in life. And living beings are social creatures by nature, so it's no surprise that they flock together. As for what a shinobi is," he continued, "it depends on one's perspective. Some see us as mere tools used for someone else's bidding, like during the Warring States era when shinobi clans were hired by daimyos for their own purposes. But others see us as protectors, like how our village's shinobi protected us from the Nine Tails." Kaido looked up at the vast expanse of the sky, his eyes searching for answers. "It really depends on your perspective, I guess," he mused thoughtfully. "As for what a village is, it was created to stop needless bloodshed and provide a safe haven for children to grow up in," he explained, his voice taking on a somber tone. "Back in the Warring States era, it was rare for a child to live past their 30s. They were often thrown into battles just to fill in the numbers." Kaido continued, both Hataru and Itachi listening intently. "And as for why there is always fighting in life," Kaido paused, choosing his words carefully. "That too depends. It's not as simple as people hating each other." "Do you know the true reasons behind the shinobi wars?" he asked, studying both Itachi and Hataru with a serious gaze. They both nodded, prompting Kaido to continue. "The first shinobi war erupted after the death of the first Hokage. But that is only part of the story. After the fight with Madara Uchiha, Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, made the decision to sell the tailed beasts to other nations as a show of trust. He believed that distributing them among the villages would prevent further conflict. However, it had the opposite effect and fueled even more violence between nations." Kaido's expression turned grave as he continued. "Our own third Hokage and the Fire Daimyo were driven by greed and arrogance, causing them to clash with the other nation over land expansion. This conflict paved the way for the Second Shinobi War." He shook his head. "So much was lost in that war due to our own selfishness." His voice grew somber as he continued. "Even after the official end of the Second Shinobi War, tensions remained high and eventually led to the Third Shinobi War just a few years later. We were so desperate for manpower that children were sent into battle, disregarding why our village was founded in the first place." Realizing he had strayed off topic, Kaido refocused on their original question. "But as I said before, there are many reasons why people fight. Some do it out of greed and arrogance, while others may see it as necessary for survival or protection." He shrugged nonchalantly. "It's never a simple black and white answer." Kaido glanced at Itachi, who seemed lost in thought, before finishing his explanation. Kaido's sharp eyes narrowed as he suddenly turned his head towards a nearby tree, detecting the presence of someone watching them. "Come out now," he called out to the person. Itachi and Hataru were both startled and followed Kaido's gaze to the tree where a young boy around 8 or 9 years old emerged. He had messy black hair and proudly wore the Konoha forehead protector. His blue high-collared t-shirt was adorned with intricate designs and a tanto was strapped to his back. "Oh, it's Yushisui." Itachi recognized the boy as Shursui Uchiha. Kaido also recognized the name Shursui Uchiha, known for his exceptional body flicker skills and mastery of the most powerful genjutsu in the future. Shursui casually introduced himself to Kaido and Hataru while Itachi continued throwing kunai. "I'm Shursui Uchiha. By the way," he said, flashing a confident smile. Kaido also introduced himself and Hataru. "I'm Kaido Uzumaki, and this is Hataru Hyuga. We're friends of Itachi." "You three are very talented for your age," observed Shursui as he walked towards them, glancing at each of them intently. Itachi paused from throwing kunai to look at Shursui. "I am no match for you, Shursui," he admitted. Shursui chuckled, flashing a mischievous grin. "Oh, come on, what's wrong? Does the academy bore you so much that you've resorted to ditching?" "We're not ditching," clarified Kaido. "We're currently at the academy." He remained seated on a large boulder next to Hataru. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Shursui joined Itachi in training and showed him a new trick. As the sun shone down on Konoha Academy, Kaido's clone lounged under a sprawling tree, enjoying a peaceful lunch. Hataru joined him, the two of them chatting and laughing as they enjoyed their break from classes. Itachi soon appeared, accompanied by a group of boys including Kamano, a classmate of theirs. It was clear to Kaido that Itachi was being followed around by his fanboys. Itachi looked lost and uncomfortable as he was followed around by his fanboys, much to Kaido's amusement. So, how does it feel to have such devoted followers? Itachi Kaido teased, making Hataru giggle. But their light-hearted banter quickly turned serious when a group of older students, at least 5 years their senior, attacked them without warning. The leader instructed his group to get them boys and they charged towards Kaido and his friends. Kaido easily dodged each attack. Instead of fighting back, he urged Hataru to simply dodge and avoid getting hurt. Itachi did the same, all three of them waiting for the teachers to arrive and handle the situation. When the instructors finally appeared on the scene, Kaido calmly tripped himself and Hataru, causing them to fall into the path of the punches aimed at them by the upperclassmen. And it dispelled them. This took everyone by surprise. What just happened? They disappeared, the lead bully asked in confusion. The instructor replied with shock in his voice, they were clones. No, they were shadow clones. This revelation shocked both the other instructors. Itachi froze mid-throw, his arm poised to release a kunai from his hand. Kaido and Hataru mirrored his stillness, their faces reflecting confusion, the realization. They all turned to face each other, their eyes meeting in silent communication. The memories flooded back into their minds, retrieved from the clones they had sent to the academy. Itachi's expression remained stoic, but Kaido couldn't help but think how it happens today, as he looked at both Hataru and Itachi. After a moment of silence, Kaido stood up from where they were seated and addressed Shursui. Well, it was nice meeting you, Shursui-san. Hataru nodded in agreement before standing up as well. As they made their way towards the exit of the clearing, Shursui asked curiously, what's the matter? We have to get back. Itachi stated simply before leading them away. See you later, Shursui called after them as they left. On their way back to the village, Hataru couldn't contain her worry any longer and turned to Kaido and asked, Kaido-kun, are we going to be in trouble for sending a clone to the academy? Her fear was palpable. Kaido reassured her with a nonchalant tone. Relax, it's not likely. They'll probably just make us skip grades. Konoha needs manpower right now, so they might even ask us to graduate early. He threw his hands behind his head as they continued towards the academy. Kaito knew that Itachi had been asked to graduate early because of this situation, and he saw this as an opportunity for himself as well. However, he also knew that convincing his mother to allow him to graduate would be the hardest part of this plan. Meanwhile, at the Hokage building, Hiruzen sat at the mission desk, listening intently to the academy instructor as he gave his detailed report. Surrounding him were members of the village elder council, Shimura Danzo, Mitakato Hamura, and Udatane Koharu. They all wore serious expressions as they listened to the instructor's words. Along with mastering the required clone jutsu for graduation, these students have also managed to perform the shadow clone jutsu, a forbidden technique, announced the instructor confidently. They excel in all areas of study and there is no purpose in keeping them at the academy any longer. Hiruzen furrowed his brow, deep in thought. I knew that Kaido-kun knows the shadow clone jutsu, but the others aren't they just freshmen? He asked. That doesn't matter. This has happened before, replied Danzo coolly, glancing over at Hiruzen. But that was a different era. This is not a time of war, argued Hiruzen. Geniuses are rare, are they not? Chimed in Danzo, turning to face the instructor. Have you ever seen students like them before? The instructor shook his head in awe. Never in my entire teaching career. So it would benefit them to graduate early, mused Hiruzen, thinking to himself, one genius is a rarity, but 3 in one batch. As the sun began to set, Kaido made his way back to his house after a long day at the academy. The familiar sight of his home brought a sense of comfort and warmth to his tired body. He called out to his mom as he entered, the sound of his voice echoing through the empty rooms. Mommy, I'm back, he said, heading towards the living room where he knew she would be with baby Naruto in her arms. Kushina turned and smiled at him, her bright red hair framing her face like a halo. Welcome back, Kaido-kun. She greeted him, gently bouncing Naruto on her hip. Kaido returned her smile and reached out to ruffle Naruto's fuzzy blonde hair, eliciting a giggle from the little boy. What's for dinner? I'm starving, he asked eagerly. I just finished cooking. We are having curry with rice, Kushina replied, gesturing towards the kitchen. Go take a bath while I set up the table. After a refreshing bath, Kaido joined his family at the dinner table where they enjoyed a delicious meal together. As they ate, Kushina asked about Kaido's day. So how was your day? She inquired, taking a bite of rice. Kaido chuckled nervously and replied, funny you should ask. He was actually asked to graduate early. They want you to come in for a meeting tomorrow. He absent-mindedly scratched the back of his head while Naruto cooed happily in his high chair. Kushina's expression turned incredulous. Why would they ask you to graduate early? You just started the academy, she exclaimed. Kaido nervously explained, well, they kind of found out that I've been sending clones to class instead of attending myself. Kushina's eyes narrowed in disapproval, but before she could say anything, Kaido quickly added, it wasn't just me though. Itachi and Hataru were also asked to graduate early. Kushina sighed and shook her head. No, Kaido, I won't let you graduate early. Kaido's voice trembled as he spoke. Mom, There's nothing left for me to learn at the academy, you know that. And I won't be alone in graduating early. As he looked over at baby Naruto beside him, Kaido's expression softened, then turned back to Kushina with a determined look in his eyes. The masked man is still out there, Mom. He won't give up until he gets to you and Naruto. I need to get stronger to protect you both. But I can't do that at the academy. Kushina's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she bit her lip in worry. But you shouldn't have to. Kaido cut her off, his voice firm. We already lost Dad because I wasn't strong enough to stop the masked man from taking you. I refused to lose you and Naruto again because I wasn't strong enough to save you. His determination shone brightly in his eyes. Feeling a wave of emotion, Kushina got up from her seat and hugged Kaido tightly. It wasn't your fault, she whispered. After a moment, she released him and ruffled his hair playfully. Okay, I'll allow you to graduate early, but only if your friends are graduating with you. The rest of the night passed by in a blur as they discussed Kaido's plans. But one thing was for sure, he was determined to become stronger and protect his family at all costs. Feeling a wave of emotion, Kushina got up from her seat and hugged Kaido tightly. It wasn't your fault, she whispered. After a moment, she released him and ruffled his hair playfully. Okay, I'll allow you to graduate early, but only if your friends are graduating with you. The rest of the night passed by in a blur as they discussed Kaido's plans. But one thing was for sure, he was determined to become stronger and protect his family at all costs. The sun had just risen, casting a warm glow over the village of Konoha. Life in the Uzumaki residence was bustling with activity. It was the 10th of October, a day that held both significance and sadness for the family. 1 year had passed since the Nine-Tails attack and the death of Minato, but it was also the birthday of their son Naruto, who was turning 1. But before celebrating, there was an important visit to be made. Kaido emerged from his room dressed in black funeral attire, ready to pay respects to his father at the Konoha cemetery. His mother Kushina was already waiting for him in the living room, also dressed in somber black garments. I'm all set, Mom, are you ready yet? Kaido asked, joining her in the living room. I think so, just need this cute little thing, Kushina replied, holding up baby Naruto, who was clad in a small suit, nuzzled her face against his, making him giggle in delight. With Naruto giggling in her arms, after locking up their home, they made their way to the Konoha cemetery where Minato's grave lay. Today was made into a holiday in Konoha so that everyone could mourn and remember those who had fallen in the tragic event. It had been over 2.5 months since Kushina had agreed to let him graduate early with his friends. Kaido's prediction had come true. He, along with Itachi and Hataru, had been offered the chance to skip years at the academy and be promoted to the graduating class for this term. To no one's surprise, they were all at the top of their class. Kaido and Itachi sharing the first place spot, with Hataru close behind in second. However, with this promotion came some unexpected disadvantages. For one, they were no longer allowed to skip class as they pleased. Kaido was especially restricted in this aspect. When he was at school, he had to leave his clones behind to continue their training. And since he couldn't skip the academy anymore, Kaido saw it as a waste of time. Instead, he used the class time to study medical ninjutsu, a subject not taught at the academy. Surprisingly, the teachers didn't seem to mind. After all, Kaido had the joint highest score in the class. Hataru also took advantage of this extra time by sending a shadow clone to train with Kaido's clones. Despite the setbacks, they were determined to make the most of their accelerated education and become even stronger ninjas. Kaido had received the scrolls on medical ninjutsu from Kakashi during one of their intense training sessions. It had only been a week since he was given the opportunity to skip a grade. As they finished their sparring session, Kaido dropped to the ground, panting heavily. He looked up at Kakashi with a hopeful glint in his eye, waiting for his evaluation. So how did I do? He asked between breaths. Kakashi studied him for a moment before answering. You managed to incorporate those water-style ninjutsu into your fighting style quite well. Your speed and taijutsu have also improved significantly. I would say your skills are somewhere between high chunin and borderlining jonin. With that, Kakashi turned to walk away. Satisfied with his performance, Kaido sat up and called out to Kakashi as he started to walk away. Hey, Kakashi. Hearing his name, Kakashi hummed in response and turned back to face Kaido. Do you know medical ninjutsu? Asked Kaido eagerly. Could you teach it to me? Kakashi paused for a moment before replying. I'm not very good at medical ninjutsu, but I can get you some scrolls on it. The next time they met, Kakashi had brought scrolls containing information on medical ninjutsu techniques, theories, and books on the matter. Kaido was determined to learn this branch of ninjutsu so he could find a way to cure his mother, Kushina. He didn't want to rely solely on Tsunade, as there was no guarantee she would heal her. In addition to studying on his own, Kaido had also tasked his shadow clones with learning medical ninjutsu. With their combined efforts, progress was being made quickly. However, despite reading through the theory scrolls multiple times, Kaido hadn't yet attempted to use the Shozen Jutsu technique. As he sat in class reading the medical books, Hataru and Itachi were curious about his new focus of study and would often ask him questions about it during their breaks in class. In addition to his foray into medical ninjutsu, Kaido had recently accomplished the feat of extracting water from the air. However, it required a significant amount of time and concentration, and he was still far from filling even a single cup. Currently, he could only manage a few drops per hour, but progress is progress. With his newfound ability to extract water from the air, Kaido had entrusted the third step of water nature manipulation to his clones. As for himself, he had moved on to working on his second nature transformation, lightning release. Kakashi had taught him the first step, crinkling a leaf, which proved to be much more challenging than the water nature exercise. When Kaido asked Kakashi about it, he had explained, "It's because lightning is your secondary nature. It won't be as easy as your primary nature. Water and wind would be even harder as it is your tertiary nature. The less aptitude you have for a certain nature, the more difficult it will be." On this particular day, Kaido was training alone while his friends Hataru and Itachi were busy with their respective clans. As usual, he was at the training ground frequented by him and Kakashi. He was in the midst of his dodging exercises when he suddenly felt the presence of someone watching him. Quickly removing his blindfold, Kaido called out, "I know you're there," pointing towards a specific direction. It was subtle. They were actively suppressing their chakra, but Kaido's heightened senses allowed him to detect their presence nonetheless. Kaido's eyes snapped to attention as a man with a bandage covering his left eye emerged from the shadows. He immediately went into high alert mode, recognizing the man as Danzo Shimura, Hiruzen Sarutobi's boyfriend and a highly influential figure in the village. "You detected my presence, impressive," Danzo remarked with a calculating gaze. "You have quite the potential." Kaido played it cool, acting as if he didn't know who Danzo was. "Who are you? What do you want?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Danzo's lips curled into a sly smile. "Who I am is not important. But I've been keeping an eye on you," he replied, his tone dripping with secrecy. This only made Kaido more wary. Watching me, why, he questioned, his mind racing with possibilities. He thought to himself, could Danzo have been spying on him, his mother and Naruto? As if reading his thoughts, Danzo calmly stated, "I have something that could help your mother. A special medicine that only I possess." Kaido's mind immediately jumped to the legendary Hashirama cells, known for their healing properties. He knew that Danzo had been trying to obtain them for years, but had yet to succeed in obtaining stable cells. Even if they could cure his mother, Kaido couldn't trust someone like Danzo. "What do you want in return?" he asked cautiously. Danzo merely nodded, his smirk growing wider. "You must join me, become my ally." Kaido knew exactly what Danzo meant by "join me." He was referring to Root, the secret organization that served under Danzo's command. The idea of joining such a ruthless group made Kaido uneasy. "Join you?" Kaido repeated incredulously. Danzo's smirk turned into a cold frown. "Yes, join me and help me achieve my goals. In return, your mother will be saved." Kaido shook his head, his resolve firm. "I can't trust you. I don't even know you, so no thank you," he stated firmly. Danzo's expression hardened as he replied, "I see. It was a mistake to offer you this opportunity. You are not worthy of it." With that, he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Later that day, as they sat down for dinner, Kushina noticed that Kaido was uncharacteristically quiet. Concerned, she asked, "What's wrong?" "Kaido-kun, what's on your mind?" Letting out a heavy sigh, Kaido proceeded to tell her about the person he had met and the offer he had been given. His words were laced with uncertainty and hesitation. Kushina's expression turned grave as she warned him, "Don't trust that man, Kaido." Curious, Kaido asked if she knew who he was. With a furrowed brow, she revealed her suspicion that it was Danzo, one of the elders of Konoha known for his shady dealings. Later that week, during a sparring session with Kakashi, Kaido shared his encounter with Danzo. Without hesitation, Kakashi urged him not to trust the man and explained how he and Minato never saw eye to eye. Kaido had confided in Kakashi because he wanted to ensure that others knew about Danzo approaching him. He couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that lingered whenever he thought about their meeting. Currently, Kaido walked slowly beside his mother, their feet crunching on the gravel path as they made their way to the Konoha cemetery. It was a somber day, marked by a memorial event held by the village to remember the tragic events that had occurred. As they reached the entrance of the cemetery, Kaido's gaze fell upon the rows of gravestones, and he couldn't help but feel a heavy weight in his chest. Together, Kaito and his mother walked towards the Hokage stone at the back of the cemetery, where they placed their offerings. Kushina knelt down in front of the stone, her hand gently caressing the carved name of her late husband. "It's been a while, Minato," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We really miss you." She then turned to face Naruto, who was being cradled in her arms. "Naruchan, wanna say hi?" she asked softly, holding him up towards the picture of his father. "He can be a handful sometimes. You know, today Naruchan is turning 1. She continued, tears forming in her eyes. "We're having a small party to celebrate." Kaido stood beside them, listening to his mother speak. He glanced around and noticed that people were staring at them, some with curious gazes while others glared at them. Kaido couldn't help but feel uncomfortable under their scrutiny and wondered why they were looking at them like that. Feeling the need to also pay his respects, Kaido stepped forward and placed his own offering on the stone. "We miss you, Dad," he said quietly before stepping back. As they stood there in silence for a moment longer, Kaido couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. But he pushed it aside as he remembered his mother telling him about how his father would have loved to meet baby Naruto and how they were having a birthday celebration for him today. As they walked away from the somber surroundings of the cemetery, Kushina's eyes lit up. "Let's go get Naruto his first taste of ramen," she declared, pulling Kaido along towards Ichiraku Ramen. Kaido couldn't help but sweat drop at her enthusiasm, knowing that Naruto had inherited his mother's love for ramen. However, as they made their way through the crowded streets, Kushina noticed some people openly glaring at them. She shifted uncomfortably and finally Kaido asked, "Mom, do you know why some of them are staring at us like that?" Kushina shook her head. "I don't know. Let's just ignore them," she replied with a forced smile. But Kaido's mind was racing, wondering if Danzo or someone else had done something to cause this hostility towards them. He couldn't shake off the feeling of unease as they continued towards Ichiraku Ramen, wondering what could be causing these glares. Did Danzo do something, he thought to himself. Kaido was aware that Danzo refrained from taking any action until Naruto reached the age of 4. As they approached the ramen stand, 2 Chunin stepped in their path, blocking their way. The Chunin's voice boomed through the streets as he shouted at Kushina. His finger pointed accusingly at her. "It's your fault, isn't it, the Nine-Tails attack?" He sneered at her, not even attempting to hide his disgust. "And you have the audacity to walk around as if it never happened." Kushina stood frozen, her trembling hand reaching to push her son Kaido behind her. She stammered, unable to form a coherent response. As they passed by, one of the passing shinobi spoke up. "Hold on a minute. Show some respect. Lady Kushina is the wife of the 4th Hokage." The other Chunin sneered and retorted, "Hokage's wife or not, she is still the reason for the attack on the village. She probably seduced the Hokage. She's nothing more than a whore." Before he could finish his sentence, Kaido had already punched him, sending him crashing to the ground with a loud thud. He quickly turned his attention to the other Chunin and delivered a swift kick, followed by a series of punches that knocked him unconscious. Meanwhile, the Chunin who had called Kushina a whore was just recovering from Kaido's punch when the latter proceeded to beat him mercilessly. "Never talk to her like that ever again, you ungrateful piece of shit." Kaido punctuated each word with a punch, filled with anger and protectiveness towards his mother. Tears welled up in Kushina's eyes as she begged Kaido to stop. "Kaido, please," but before anything else could happen, a wave of intense pain washed over her and she dropped to her knees. Kaido immediately rushed to her side, taking his crying brother Naruto from her arms and cradling him gently. "Mom, are you okay?" He looked at her with concern and worry in his eyes. Kushina could only nod weakly as she struggled to catch her breath, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. In that moment, all Kaido could do was hold onto Naruto and offer comfort to his mother, as they both endured the pain and judgment of others. As the chaos settled, a Konoha police officer approached the scene and upon seeing a bloody Chunin, he immediately questioned, "What happened here?" The shinobi who had defended Kushina quickly explained the events that had transpired. Nodding in understanding, the officer declared, "We will take it from here," and proceeded to arrest the Chunins involved. With her pain now subsiding, Kushina turned to Kaido with a reassuring smile and said, "I'm okay, baby." Kaido nodded. The officer approached them and asked, "Do you need any assistance?" "Ma'am." Kushina shook her head and replied, "No, it's fine." "Are we allowed to leave?" The officer responded with a nod, saying, "Hi, you are free to go." The tension lifted as they were given permission to depart from the chaotic scene. After finally soothing her pain, Kushina tenderly cradled Naruto in her arms and gently cooed to him, "It's okay. Naruchan, it's all okay now." The 3 of them made their way back home in a heavy silence, both lost in their own thoughts and emotions. Once they arrived, Kaido spoke up to comfort his mother. "Don't think about those ungrateful idiots, Mom." With a small smile, Kushina ruffled his hair and planted a kiss on his forehead. "I want, especially since I have my little protector right here with me." Kaido couldn't help but blush at being called that. "Let's get started on the cake," he said eagerly, breaking the somber mood. "It's Naruto's birthday, you know." "Hi," replied Kushina as she shifted Naruto in her arms. "Let's make the best cake for our Naruchan." Together, they worked on making a delicious cake for the small celebration later that night. Makoto had arrived with her 2 sons Itachi and baby Sasuke, while Kakashi also joined in on the festivities and brought a stuffed animal for Naruto. As everyone settled into bed for the night, Kaido couldn't help but worry. "I'll have to increase the number of clones watching over Mom and Naruto just to be safe," he thought. He knew it was Danzo who had caused all this chaos. "I know it was you who did this, and most likely because I rejected your offer," he seethed as he stared up at the ceiling. "Just you wait, you arrogant shirt'll make you regret ever crossing us." But for now, there wasn't much he could do except keep a close eye on his family. What if Naruto had a reincarnated older brother part 3, at maybe 3 likes, joking let's get 100 likes for part 3.